Chapter 223. Lin Feng looked at the system's latest main mission, rubbed his chin, and muttered in his heart, "It looks simple, but according to the system's usual deceptive nature, why do I have an ominous feeling?" Main Mission 2. 1. Make a name for yourself and expand your influence. Mission description: Congratulations to the host for successfully establishing a sect and officially embarking on the path of building a sect. But the sect is still a fledgling to the entire world. To truly establish an everlasting foundation, the host still has a long way to go. From today onwards, the host needs to improve the various basic facilities of the sect and expand the influence of the sect throughout the great heaven primal world. Worldwide reputation points need to exceed 80. Mission time limit, 10 years. If the mission is not completed within the time limit, the host will be directly killed. Worldwide reputation points. Lin Feng blinked his eyes and called out his own reputation system. After carefully observing for a moment, his brows slowly furrowed. His first concern was still the northern foothills of Kunlun Mountain where his old nest was located. Half a year ago, after the Sand Continent's vast sea assembly ended, Lin Feng's current reputation points in the northern foothills of Kunlun Mountain had already reached 85 points. But after such a big commotion like the opening of the sect, his reputation points in the northern foothills of Kunlun Mountain had only increased by a mere 5 points to 90. This was completely incomparable to the speed at which his reputation value skyrocketed before. Lin Feng carefully pondered for a moment. It's far more difficult to take a step forward than to build a tall building from the ground. It seems that the higher one goes, the harder it is to increase one's reputation points. And Lin Feng's personal reputation points were not the same as his sect's overall reputation points. Compared to Lin Feng's current reputation points of 90 points, the sect's overall reputation points in the northern foothills of Kunlun Mountain were much lower at 75 points. Lin Feng carefully recalled that during the vast sea assembly, the sect's overall reputation points were only a mere 50 points. The huge increase was directly related to the time when Xiao Yan and the others fought a group of Yuanying stage opponents in the wilderness outside the Sand Continent. My personal reputation will increase the reputation of the sect as a whole. After all, I am the patriarch and the sect master. The actions of the disciples can also increase the reputation of the sect as a whole. At this time, Lin Feng had already understood. Looking at the other areas outside the northern foothills of Kunlun Mountain, whether it was his personal reputation or the reputation of the sect as a whole, it was a lot lower. Some areas had higher potential reputation, which was probably a benefit brought about by the battle before the opening ceremony. After Yang Tonghui and the others who had participated in the ceremony returned to the area where their sects were located, they spread the story of the battle. They believed that Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong would gain a higher reputation in the local area. Because of their spread, potential reputation was transformed into current reputation. Even so, from the perspective of the entire Heaven's Origin sector, Lin Feng's personal reputation and the reputation of the sect as a whole were still rather low. There was still a long way to go before he reached the 80 points required for the main quest. Lin Feng sighed. There's still a long way to go. What was more conducive to increasing reputation? Either it was to accomplish a great undertaking that no one had ever succeeded in before, like a sudden clap of thunder. Or it was to take advantage of the situation and stand on the shoulders of giants to see further. Lin Feng thought about it carefully and withdrew his consciousness from the system. He checked the latest special reward given by the system after he completed the main quest of the opening ceremony. It was an umbrella, a big black umbrella. Holding the handle of the umbrella, Lin Feng's fingers gently rubbed the surface of the umbrella. He thought to himself, this thing is good to use, but if I'm not careful, it will be more of a hindrance and have the opposite effect. I need to plan carefully. Thinking of this, Lin Feng was in a daze for a while. A warm smile like the spring sun gradually appeared on his face. He waved his hand, and 2 balls of flames fell on the ground, turning into 2 figures. Both of them looked the same. They were thin and withered, with a sharp mouth and monkey cheeks. Their faces were purplish black with a hint of red. A pair of small ears stood straight up, and there was not a single hair on their bald heads. One of them looked like a youth, while the other looked like a middle-aged man. They were the Fire Crow Young Master and Fire Crow Demon Marshal that Lin Feng had captured alive when he first came to the Kunlun mountain range to search for Mount Yujing. The two bird demons had now transformed into human forms. Facing Lin Feng, they had long lost their temper and stood obediently, not even daring to breathe loudly. Lin Feng looked at them and said indifferently, "Previously, you offended me, so I locked you up for a period of time and punished you slightly." The Fire Crow Demon Marshal nodded repeatedly. "Previously, this little demon was rude and offended Senior. Please forgive me, Senior." He hesitated for a moment and looked at the Fire Crow Young Master beside him. "My race's young master is still young and inexperienced. Please forgive him, Senior. My race's leader only had this one child. Now that he has been separated from his flesh and blood, please take pity on him." The Fire Crow Young Master's edges might not have been polished, but he knew very well that in Lin Feng's eyes, even his father, the Fire Crow King, didn't think much of him. He didn't dare to flare up and obediently bowed to Lin Feng. "Previously, I was insensible. Senior, please be magnanimous and forgive me this time." Lin Feng smiled. "Looks like you've learned your lesson. I'm not a bloodthirsty person, so I can let you go today. However, I need you to bring a message for me." The Fire Crow Young Master and the Fire Crow Demon Marshal were overjoyed. The Fire Crow Young Master hurriedly asked, "Senior, do you have something to discuss with my father?" "I have nothing to discuss with him." Lin Feng glanced at the Fire Crow Young Master. "I want you to bring a message to the Golden Crow Great Sage. To the Great Ancestor." The Fire Crow Young Master and the Fire Crow Demon Marshal were both shocked. They looked at each other and didn't dare to ask any more questions. They both lowered their heads. "Senior, please speak." "We'll definitely bring the message." Lin Feng pointed and a ball of purple gas landed in front of the two demons. "Bring this back and give it to the Golden Crow Great Sage." The Fire Crow Young Master obediently put away the purple gas. Then, he and the Fire Crow Demon Marshal were sent out of Mount Yujing by Lin Feng. They left the void and returned to the vast thousand domains. Lin Feng's gaze pierced through the void and watched as they turned into two tiny black dots before disappearing into the distance. He smiled. "Don't disappoint me." Great Zhou Dynasty's capital, Tianjin City. A majestic palace faced the south on the central meridian of Tianjin City. It was the imperial city of the Great Zhou Dynasty, the heart of the entire country. Within the imperial city, there were thousands of palaces, palace walls, and houses. They were painted red and had yellow tiles. Amidst the magnificence, there was even more an incomparable might and grandeur. It was as if a celestial palace had descended into the mortal world. In the central area of this imperial city, there was an extremely majestic palace made entirely of white jade. The palace flickered with a red light, repelling all evil and causing celestials and Buddhas to bow their heads. In a warm room on the east side of the palace, a middle-aged man sat on a large chair. The instant anyone who saw this middle-aged man, they would have an illusion. It was as if what supported this room, this palace, was not those white pillars that needed two people to wrap their arms around, but this man in front of them. This man supported this room, supported the entire palace. Even his head was holding up the sky, his feet were on the ground, and one of his hands was holding up the sky. This person wore embroidered clothes and a purple gold crown on his head. His temples were slightly white and his hands were as white as jade, untainted by even a speck of dust. He gave people a feeling that he grasped endless power. He was the pillar of the Great Zhou Dynasty, the pillar of the country, the Marquis of Xuanji Zhu Hongwu. On the large table in front of Zhu Hongwu were the memorials sent in by the various provinces and prefectures under the rule of the Great Zhou Dynasty. He had to first sort them out and give his own opinion before presenting it to the Emperor of Zhou. This was his responsibility as the Great Zhou Dynasty's Grand Tutor. Putting down another memorial, Zhu Hongwu raised his head. His pupils were pitch black, like the starry sky of the universe. He stared at the entrance of the palace. Enter. An old eunuch walked in, his expression humble, speaking in a soft voice. The emperor has summoned the grand tutor to the main palace to discuss matters. Even though he was bowing and scraping in front of Zhu Hongwu, his mana undulations were extremely terrifying. He was impressively a great Yuanying mid-stage cultivator, a great eunuch second only to Mei Wulang in the imperial palace. But in front of Zhu Hongwu, he was as humble as a servant. Hearing this, Zhu Hongwu nodded his head. Your subject obeys. He immediately put down the memorial and stood up. When he stood up, the old eunuch instantly felt as if the entire world in front of him shook. Under the guidance of the other party, Zhu Hongwu left the warm room of the side palace and arrived at the main palace. Only after meticulously being informed by the eunuch on duty did he slowly walk into the main palace. In the main palace, a middle-aged man wearing a golden crown with 9 dragons on his head and the robes of the Ming Emperor was currently sitting on the dragon throne. At first glance, the dragon throne seemed to be located above the main palace, facing south and back north. But looking closely, one would discover that the dragon throne seemed to be separated from the entire main palace, located in a different space and time. The middle-aged man on the dragon throne had a face like white jade, faintly showing some signs of age. But he did not seem weak at all. Instead, it made him even more dignified, filled with the bearing of controlling the world. It was the Emperor of Zhou, Liang Pan. In the seat below Liang Pan, Mei Wulang stood respectfully while Yan Mingyue sat on a round stool, her expression peaceful. Even when Zhu Hongwu came, she only nodded slightly in acknowledgement. When he saw Zhu Hongwu enter, Liang Pan smiled amiably and said, "My beloved subject, please sit as well." He gave the decree, and a young eunuch brought up a round stool made of cinnabar wood. Zhu Hongwu respectfully thanked the emperor, then sat down on the stool. "Hongwu, your and Fairy Meng's son, Zhu Yi, has truly surprised us," Liang Pan said amiably, calling Zhu Hongwu by his name as if he were speaking to a close friend. It was clear that he and Zhu Hongwu had a close and harmonious relationship. Zhu Hongwu calmly replied, "I am indebted to your Majesty's praise. Your subject does not dare to accept it. It definitely isn't an exaggeration." Liang Pan waved his hand. "Fairy Yen and Empty Waves have already explained the situation to us. Just as Fairy Yen said, your son, Zhu Yi's master is no ordinary person. Empty Waves, explain the situation to Hongwu." Zhu Hongwu turned to look at Mei Wulang and Yan Mingyue. It seems that Zhang Hai returned empty-handed. Mei Wulang respectfully replied, "That Xian Men's sect master is even stronger than we expected." He then told Zhu Hongwu everything that he had seen with his own eyes. Hearing this, Zhu Hongwu nodded. He calmly said, "If that's the case, then this Xianmen Tianzong's strength is above that of the Wind God sect, the Celerita's sword sect, and will not be easy to eliminate. However, even though he has an extraordinary advantage, he also has a fatal flaw." Chapter 224. Zhu Hongwu said calmly, "Xianmen Tianzong has an extraordinary advantage, but it also has a fatal flaw." Yan Mingyue and Liang Pan looked at each other. Liang Pan asked with interest, "Oh? What did Hongwu find out? Tell us." "Your Majesty, please allow me to answer." Zhu Hongwu stood up and bowed. He continued, "Xianmen Tianzong's greatest strength lies not in the strength of their Dao, skills and divine powers, nor in the fact that their disciples are much stronger than their peers, nor in the fact that their sect master, Lin Feng, is very powerful. Although Xuanmen's Dao, skills and divine powers are strong, and their disciples can fight against Yuanying cultivators at the Golden Elixir period, this is not unique. As far as I know, there are more than one rising star who can do this. Moreover, one of the important reasons why Xuanmen's disciples can challenge Yuanying cultivators is that the sect master, Lin Feng, gave them the Yuanying ritual implements, which greatly increased their combat power. Xuanmen's Dao, skills and divine powers should not be underestimated, but there is also no need to overestimate them. Zhu Hongwu's eyes were calm, and his tone was calm. As for the sect master, Lin Feng, he can shatter the universe and create things out of nothing. He is indeed powerful. Even some cultivators who have just formed their primordial spirit may not have this kind of magical power. However, many primordial spirit cultivators with high cultivation can do this. Forgive me for being rude, Your Majesty, you can do it. Liang Pan pointed at him and smiled. Hongwu, you have forgotten yourself. Zhu Hongwu answered, I dare not be on the same level as Your Majesty. Liang Pan said slowly, but what the sect master of Xianmen has shown may not be his full strength. Your Majesty is wise, I agree. Zhu Hongwu continued, this is the reason why I am sure of the sect master's strength. This person is quite mysterious, it is difficult to see through him. As I said just now, although these are the outstanding aspects of Xianmen Tianzong, they are not the foundation of their success. Xianmen Tianzong's greatest reliance is their mountain gate, the legendary Yujing Mountain. Zhu Hongwu's gaze finally fluctuated a little. This mountain is truly mysterious, to actually be able to allow the entire cave to escape into the void turbulence, making it difficult to track. This is the truly difficult part of the celestial sect of wonders to deal with. Whether it was the Shu Mountain of the Shu Mountain Sword Sect, the Baiyun Mountain of the Taishu Temple, or the great Zhou dynasty's Tianjing city, they were all there and would not run away. Regardless of whether or not they could break through, as long as they wanted to attack, they would be able to attack. Only Yujing Mountain was hidden in the void. No matter how capable they were, they would not be able to block Lin Feng's door. The other three people present all nodded in agreement. Given the strength of Yujing Mountain and the mysterious Heaven Treasure Tree, even if they came out of the void and landed in a specific location, it would be difficult to break through. If Lin Feng wanted to drive Yujing Mountain away, it would be difficult for anyone to stop him. Who knew how many great cultivators would die to attack Yujing Mountain? And once Yujing Mountain left, it would be difficult to find it again. When it would appear would depend entirely on Lin Feng's mood. Yan Mingyue said calmly, if we want to break through Xianmen Tianzong, the sect master of Xianmen Tianzong will have to drive Yujing Mountain himself and attack Baiyun Mountain, Shu Mountain, or Tianjing City. Moreover, he will fight to the death without retreating. Only then will he have some chance of destroying them. But the price he will have to pay is difficult to estimate. Zhu Hongwu clenched his fists and said calmly, if he has no desire, it will indeed be difficult. But looking at his actions, he is definitely not content with an ordinary life. As long as he has a desire, it will not be difficult to scheme. This involves the flaw of Xianmen Tianzong. Although he is extremely talented, his foundation is not stable. Other than the sect master of Xianmen Tianzong himself, there are no other primordial soul cultivators in the sect. As long as the sect master of Xianmen Tianzong dies, Xianmen Tianzong will definitely collapse. As Zhu Hongwu said this, his eyelids drooped. No matter how strong he is only one person. There are only 2 Yuanying and 3 golden elixir cultivators left in the sect. Although they are powerful, if they are surrounded by 3 to 5 primordial soul cultivators, the sect master of Xianmen Tianzong can only obediently surrender. The only thing that needs to be thought about is how to prevent him from using the power of the immortal mountain in the cave abode to escape. Liang Pan's fingers tapped lightly on the armrest of the throne. After a moment, he said, our initial strategy will not change. We will befriend those who are far away and attack those who are close. We will form a good relationship with Xianmen Tianzong and work together against the Mount Shu Sword Sect and the Great Qin Dynasty. This will be our next strategy. With this strategy, the strength of Xianmen Tianzong is a good thing for the Great Zhou Dynasty. Zhu Hongwu and Mei Wulang replied at the same time, as Your Majesty commands. Mei Wulang hesitated for a moment, then said, but this old servant thinks that the sect master of Xianmen Tianzong has other ideas. He left Mount Shu's true Lord Li Xiong Kong Chang alive, and even sent him to the Heavenly Sword Sect. He seems to have other intentions. Liang Pan smiled. Of course he won't be willing to be cannon fodder for the great Zhou dynasty. But sending Kong Chang's nascent soul to the Heavenly Sword sect is a bit interesting. This person also seems to have the idea of breaking up the Nine Heavens Sword Alliance from within. That is the same as us. Whether he will be cannon fodder or not is not up to him to decide, Zhu Hongwu said silently. It depends on whose methods are better. Yan Mingyue looked at Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu, the ruler and subject, and a smile appeared on her lips. Her mind was in turmoil. Zhu Hongwu, your methods may not be as good as his. Lin Feng, just how far can you go? The main peak of the Cloud Illusion Mountain range in the southeast of the Great Qin dynasty, Cloud Traversing Peak, was where one of the Nine Heavens Sword Alliance, the Celeritas Sword Sect, was located. In a cave abode on Cloud Traversing Peak, a white-clothed woman sat cross-legged. The woman's features were cold and elegant, and a green jade pendant hung from her delicate earlobes. When she shook it slightly, it gave off a crisp sound. A streak of sword light was graceful, continuously flying around her. After a moment it calmed down and landed in the scabbard on the woman's back. Very good, Yanran. You have already gradually comprehended the essence of this sword technique. A middle-aged beautiful woman appeared in front of the white-clothed woman, smiling. You didn't waste your time training in the small cave that accelerates time. The white-clothed woman was precisely the Murong Yanran of the past. At this moment her childishness had faded, and her features were elegant and refined. Seeing the middle-aged beautiful woman, Murong Yanran smiled and called out. Master. The middle-aged beautiful woman was called Reverend Tong Ling. Her strength was outstanding among the Celeritas Sword Sect's Golden Elixir period cultivators. She looked at Murong Yanran and was delighted. Yanran's talent is indeed outstanding. In such a short time you have already reached foundation establishment middle stage cultivation. There shouldn't be a problem in the arranged battle with that Xiao Yan. Thinking of this, Reverend Tong Ling's face revealed a smile. She also gave Murong Yanran some pointers on the difficult points of Dao techniques before returning to her cave abode. Before sitting down, Reverend Tong Ling received a message from her master, old ancestor Qing Wei. Master went to investigate that Xianmen Tianzong's situation and has already returned? Come to think of it, even though that Xianmen Tianzong has caused a huge commotion in the northern foothills of Kunlun Mountain, but it can't be compared to my Celeritas Sword Sect's tens of millions of years of foundation. Kunlun Mountain, he must first endure the suppression of the Wind God sect. While thinking, Reverend Tong Ling arrived at old ancestor Qing Wei's cave abode. Seeing old ancestor Qing Wei, she hurriedly saluted and greeted. Master as well. Old ancestor Qing Wei, whose back was facing her before, turned around at this time. Reverend Tong Ling saw his expression and was instantly shocked. As far as she could remember, she had never seen her master so worried. Master. Reverend Tong Ling was somewhat at a loss. Old ancestor Qing Wei sighed and asked. Yanran, that girl, how is her Dao technique realm now? Speaking of Murong Yanran, Reverend Tong Ling immediately became spirited, smiling. After secluded cultivation in the small grotto heaven, Yanran has already successfully established her beer and reached the middle stage of foundation building. Moreover, what Yanran established is a second-grade beer. Reverend Tong Ling has reason to be proud. Counting the time spent in the accelerated time grotto heaven, Murong Yanran this year is only 20 years old. Entering the sect for less than 10 years, establishing a beer, she is definitely the best of this generation of Celeritas Sword Sect's young disciples. Especially Murong Yanran establishing a second-grade beer, this means that in the future she will form her core and have a chance of forming her purple core. In the Celeritas Sword Sect, this is also considered an extremely outstanding achievement. Reverend Tong Ling originally thought that old ancestor Qing Wei would also feel happy. Who knew that when the old man heard this, he frowned even more, smiling bitterly. Middle stage of foundation building, middle stage of foundation building, the 3-year agreement is coming, what should I do? A bad feeling arose in Reverend Tong Ling's heart. 3-year agreement. Master, could it be that Xiao Yan has some changes? He's in that Xianmentian zone. Old ancestor Qing Wei's old face wrinkled like a bun, smiling bitterly and nodding, sighing again and again, not in the mood to speak. Reverend Tong Ling took a deep breath. What is his current cultivation level, late stage of foundation building? If that's the case, disciple will bestow Yanran a golden elixir period magic item. She still has the power to fight. Speaking up to here, old ancestor Qing Wei directly raised his hand to interrupt him. That Xiao Yan has already formed a golden elixir period, and looking at his mana fluctuations, it must be a purple core without a doubt. Reverend Tong Ling was shocked, no longer caring about his image. He was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. How is that possible? With Yenran's aptitude, she's been training in my Celerita's sword sect and is only at the middle stage of foundation building. How could that kid have already formed his core? Moreover, how old is that kid? Could it be that he's been squatting in the accelerated time grotto heaven for these 3 years? How could there be such a grotto heaven in this world? Old ancestor Qing Wei gave her a dissatisfied look and said, not only that, the magical powers that this kid cultivates are extremely tyrannical, and he has also mastered the 2 great true fires of the true sun fire and the evil hell fire. In actual combat power, he can almost crush all the golden elixir period cultivators in the world. He stared at Reverend Tong Ling and slowly said, naturally that includes you. Reverend Tong Ling looked at his master in shock. Old ancestor Qing Wei smiled bitterly. He was after all still a yuanying old ancestor. He wanted face and some words couldn't be said. After witnessing the battle between Xiao Yan and true monarch Hurricane, old ancestor Qing Wei himself wasn't 100% sure that he could defeat Xiao Yan. Even if he could win, it would only be a Pyrrhic victory. Otherwise, why would he be worried to this point? Not to mention the fact that the disciple was not his opponent. Even the Grandmaster wasn't 100% sure that he could beat him. What was the point of a bet? Reverend Tong Ling felt dizzy, only waking up after a long time. She took a deep breath. That day Yanran made a bet with that kid. If she lost she would have to be a servant. My Celerita's sword sect can't afford to lose face like that. We must think of a way to stop this from happening. Chapter 225. Daoist Tong Ling kept repeating, we must think of a way to stop this from happening, we must think of a way to stop this from happening, we must think of a way to stop this from happening. She suddenly raised her head, Master, if it really doesn't work, we can make more preparations and talk to that kid after he goes up the mountain. If he knows what's good for him and gives up the bet, we won't mistreat him and give him some compensation. While speaking, Daoist Tong Ling's eyes revealed a bit of ruthlessness. If he doesn't know what's good for him, then we might as well leave him on Yinxing Peak. Ancestor Qing Wei let out a long sigh. This method also won't work. Daoist Tong Ling was anxious, Master. Ancestor Qing Wei shook his head and said, I'm not saying your method is wrong, but this method is not feasible. Daoist Tong Ling asked curiously, why? Ancestor Qing Wei briefly introduced the course of the battle on the wilderness outside Shazhou City. Daoist Tong Ling was immediately dumbfounded. After who knows how long, a smile uglier than crying appeared on her face. Just what kind of people are in this Xianmentian zone? In this way, wouldn't Yenran's bet be lost for sure, and my Celerita's sword sect will become the laughing stock of the world. If Murong Yenran was an ordinary disciple, then it would be fine, perhaps it could be handled in a low-key manner. But in these 3 years, Murong Yenran followed Daoist Tong Ling to travel around, and was listed in the entire Nine Heavens Sword Alliance and the Great Qin dynasty. She had the strongest potential among her peers in the Celerita's sword sect, and her reputation was the most resounding. She was the focus of the sect's training. For such a disciple to lose to someone else as a slave, the Celerita's sword sect would definitely find it hard to accept. The key was that Murong Yenran despised him for being a good-for-nothing and forcibly broke off the engagement. Now that the good-for-nothing who was broken off from the engagement soared to the sky and came to slap their faces. If the whole story was also exposed, then it wouldn't just be a slap in the face, but the entire face of the Celeritas sword sect would be stripped clean. If Xiao Yan only relied on his own strength, without any background, Ancestor Qing Wei absolutely wouldn't mind accepting Daoist Tong Ling's suggestion. Even this idea had repeatedly appeared in the old man's mind. But as soon as he thought of Lin Feng's various methods, Ancestor Qing Wei shuddered. But if Xiao Yan really came to slap his face, Murong Yenran would lose the bet in the past and become Xiao Yan's maidservant. The old man would not be able to accept it. Ancestor Qing Wei muttered to himself, "Think of a way. I must think of a way." After a long time, his eyes suddenly lit up. This method might work. After the calculation, Ancestor Qing Wei's old face finally relaxed. Instead of frowning, he smiled like a chrysanthemum. Reverend Tong Ling looked at the old man strangely. "Master, do you have an idea?" Ancestor Qing Wei took a look at her and thought, I still need her to explain to Murong Yenran clearly the relationship between them. So he simply told her his idea. Daoist Master Tong Ling was stunned when he heard this. He said hesitantly, "Master, I'm afraid." Ancestor Qing Wei said lightly, "There's nothing to be afraid of. Just do as I say." After Immortal Tong Ling left, Ancestor Qing Wei sighed, "I hope it will work." Xiao Yan, alas, why did you have to take Lin Feng as your master? Lin Feng, who made a lot of people confused, was staring at his system in a daze. Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing were accepted, and Lin Feng got 2 lottery chances. Naturally, he would use them without hesitation. But the lottery system couldn't be accessed. There was only a line of big words displayed. System upgrade in progress. Please enter after the upgrade is completed. Lin Feng scratched his head and looked at the exchange system. Sure enough, the system was also undergoing an upgrade and couldn't be accessed. He remembered that the last time the system upgraded was when he had just reached the foundation establishment stage. When I reached the core formation stage, I didn't see the system upgrade. Lin Feng thought carefully. It seems that the upgrade of the system is not only bound to my own Taoist level, but also to the upgrade of my self-created Taoist method, the Tao Te Ching. The first system upgrade was when he comprehended the first chapter of the Tao Te Ching, the Tao Te Ching of the 8 trigrams, and successfully reached the foundation establishment stage. The second system upgrade was when he comprehended the second chapter of the Tao Te Ching of the 4 symbols, the Tao Te Ching of the 4 symbols, and successfully reached the nascent soul stage. Lin Feng pondered and said, the upgrade of my own Taoist level and the upgrade of my self-created Taoist level are 2 conditions that can't be lacking. When he first created the Tao Te Ching of the 4 symbols, he didn't see the system upgrade because he hadn't successfully reached the Yuanying stage. Lin Feng sighed. Forget it, he could only wait until the upgrade was over before using the lottery chance. He hoped that the upgrade would be more powerful and give him something good. Since he couldn't draw the lottery for the time being, Lin Feng wandered around the mountain alone. As he wandered, Lin Feng arrived at the door of the alchemy room. He raised his head and looked at the horizontal board with the words, Heaven Returning Gold Pavilion. Lin Feng thought, as the main palace hall, the Celestial Palace's special feature is its amazing defense. The disciples' abode can attract the surrounding spiritual energy to nourish the people living inside. It seems that these buildings built by the sect's construction token all have their own special uses. I wonder what's so special about this alchemy room. While thinking, Lin Feng entered the alchemy room named Heaven Returning Gold Pavilion. As soon as he entered, he saw Xiao Yan walking around the outer core furnace with a black face. The furnace had already been lit up, and waves of medicinal fragrance wafted out. When Xiao Yan saw Lin Feng come in, he grinned, revealing his white teeth. However, when matched with his black cheeks, he looked quite funny. Lin Feng laughed and said, Why don't you clean yourself up? With Xiao Yan's current cultivation, as long as he wants, he can completely not be stained by a speck of dust, not to mention suffocating himself until he looks like an African. I can't take care of it, master. Xiao Yan stared at the furnace and replied, your alchemy room is really great. I've tested it. With the help of the 8 trigrams formation on the floor of your alchemy room, and the help of these wind and fire cattail fans, the success rate of alchemy has increased by at least 30%. When Lin Feng heard this, he was a little surprised. A treasure like the outer core furnace could only increase the success rate of alchemy by 30%. Now, with the addition of Heaven Returning Gold Pavilion, it could directly increase the success rate of alchemy by 60%. This data was absolutely terrifying. To be precise, the success rate of alchemy mentioned here actually referred to the utilization rate of medicinal herbs. When ordinary cultivators were refining pills, the fire control, the ratio of medicinal herbs, the timing of opening the furnace and other factors would affect the utilization rate of medicinal herbs. Generally speaking, the majority of cultivators could only effectively use about 30% of the medicinal herbs, and the rest would be wasted as medicinal dregs. This was actually considered a success in alchemy. Strictly speaking, it was a failure. The medicinal herbs in the furnace would be completely destroyed, and the time spent on alchemy would also be wasted. Cultivators with outstanding alchemy techniques and skills would probably use about 40% to 50% of the medicinal herbs. Xiao Yan could achieve this ratio previously, and this was the result of him not learning alchemy systematically. He had to rely on himself. Thinking of this, Lin Feng felt a little guilty. It's a pity that I didn't capture the 100 Herbs ancestor alive. Otherwise, I would have been able to obtain his insights in alchemy, and I would also have had something to teach little Yen. Now, it's really a waste of his talent. What a pity. The 100 Herbs ancestors' thousands of years of cultivation had all been dealing with spiritual medicine and elixirs. When he was refining pills, a conservative estimate of the medicinal herbs' utilization rate was more than 70%. With a good alchemy furnace, he could break through 90% in minutes. With the outer core furnace in his hands, the medicinal herbs' utilization rate would be 100%, and not a single raw material would be wasted. And now, with his own alchemy skills and the addition of outer core furnace and Heaven Returning Gold Pavilion, Xiao Yan could also achieve 100% utilization rate of medicinal herbs. There might be some slight fluctuations, but it was close to perfection. Xiao Yan himself was also very excited about this. It was obvious that he had been tossing and turning in the alchemy room for a long time. His eyes were bloodshot, and he looked a little tired. His transcendence power was almost depleted, but his spirit was abnormally excited. Lin Feng scanned with his transcendence power and found that there were already a few large gourds with elixirs in them. They were all Thunderous Recover Pill and Barrier Breaking Pill. After Lin Feng obtained the elixir recipes for these 2 types of elixirs, he turned around and gave them to Xiao Yan. Looking at the excited Xiao Yan, Lin Feng thought to himself, looks like I need to get some more elixir recipes. It would be best if I can get them from the system, like the 33 Heavens Fortune Celestial Pill, elixirs that don't exist in this world. He, Xianmen Tianzong, had established his own sect. It was not very appropriate for him to refine elixirs in the alchemy room all day long. Well, Xiao Yan, you have to study more and develop new products that are unique to us as soon as possible. Engage in more technological development and innovation. This is the core competitiveness. Lin Feng thought shamelessly. He raised his head to look at the roof of the alchemy room and was suddenly stunned. Other than the 8 trigrams on the floor of the returning Heaven Gold Pavilion, there were also 8 trigrams on the ceiling. Different from the golden pattern on the floor, the 8 trigrams on the ceiling were silver. Lin Feng stared at the silver 8 trigrams for a while, and gradually felt out some of the knack of it. He had a guess in his heart. He took out a porcelain bottle with 7 elixirs in it. They were the elixirs unique to the Heavenly Sword sect that Yang Tonghui had given him at the Vast Sea Dharma Assembly in the Sand Continent, the Heavenly Connecting Pill. At this time, Xiao Yan had also completed the process of pulling the elixirs. He once again refined a cauldron of good elixirs. He took out a dozen barrier-breaking pills from the outer core furnace and stored them in the large gourds on the wall. He looked strangely at Lin Feng. "Master?" Lin Feng smiled slightly. "Xiao Yan, the profoundness of this alchemy room is not just to increase the success rate of refining elixirs." As he said this, he ran a heavenly connecting pill into the air. With a thought, he communicated with the silver 8 trigrams on the ceiling. Instantly, a silver light descended and caught the heavenly connecting pill. Once the silver light came into contact with the heavenly connecting pill, it immediately started flashing non-stop. A large number of diagrams and words appeared in the silver light. Xiao Yan looked carefully, and his eyes instantly widened. He exclaimed, "Master, this is the elixir formula for the heavenly connecting pill." Lin Feng smiled and nodded. He thought to himself, "I guessed right. This alchemy room has many mysteries. It is far from being that simple." Thinking of this, Lin Feng's heart suddenly moved. If the alchemy room is like this, then what about the depository of scriptures? Chapter 226. Xiao Yan looked at the silver light emitted by the 8 trigrams pattern on the roof of the pill chamber. A large number of diagrams and words appeared in the light. Although he had never seen the real connecting heaven pill formula before, and had never consumed the connecting heaven pill before, Xiao Yan could still tell at a glance that these illustrated words were precisely the connecting heaven pill's pill formula. The first line of the medicinal ingredients list was the rank 9 connecting heaven grass. Xiao Yan's eyes lit up. "Master, our pill chamber can actually reverse engineer the recipe of the existing medicinal pills?" "That's right." Lin Feng looked calm on the surface, as if he already knew about this. However, he was actually as surprised as Xiao Yan. The refinement of medicinal pills was not just about extracting the medicinal potency and spirit qi from the medicinal ingredients. There were also many complicated changes and combinations. A recipe was not just a simple list of medicinal ingredients. It was also a combination of many techniques. Even a primordial soul almighty would not be able to reverse engineer the complete recipe of an existing medicinal pill. It might be possible if it was a lower grade medicinal pill, but if it was of a higher grade, there was no need to even think about it. The 8 trigrams array on the roof of the heavenly gold pavilion could actually reverse engineer the recipe of a medicinal pill. This was definitely something that made Lin Feng happy. Not only could he greatly expand the storage of pill recipes in his pill chamber. More importantly, Xianmen Tianzong could reproduce many ancient pill recipes that had been lost. The great Tianyuan world had developed for thousands of years. Countless sects had risen and countless almighty cultivators had been born. However, there were also many sects that had been annihilated. Many capable people had fallen and disappeared in the long river of history. Following their disappearance, many rare Dao techniques, divine abilities, and medicinal pill recipes had also been lost. Some of these medicinal pills that had been lost had been refined into finished products and circulated in the world. However, the pill recipes had been completely lost. Without the pill recipes, there was no way to produce new medicinal pills. The medicinal pills that had been left behind would be exhausted one day. These medicinal pills could not avoid the fate of completely disappearing from this world. If such medicinal pills were to fall into my hands, I could use the heavenly gold pavilion to make those lost medicinal pill recipes reappear in the world. Lin Feng thought to himself, if that's the case, the value might not be in the pill itself. If I handle it properly, there might be some other gains. Of course, having a pill recipe didn't mean that one would definitely be able to refine a spirit pill. Some spirit pills required special and precious materials. For example, the sky-split pill. If one did not have the tier 9 sky-split grass, they would not be able to refine it even if they had the pill formula. Even so, this discovery was extremely precious to Lin Feng. His mind spun and many ideas popped up in an instant. I'll try to collect all kinds of rare spiritual pills, even if it's just one. In addition to collecting other elixirs, Lin Feng also reminded Xiao Yan not to forget about his own technological innovations. After leaving the pill room, Lin Feng went to the scripture depository next door. Compared to the grand and magnificent heaven-returning golden pavilion, the hidden scriptures tower was much simpler and had a bit of an antique charm. The scripture depository was close to 30 feet tall, divided into 3 floors, built entirely from jade bamboo that flickered with a purple light. Lin Feng entered the scripture depository, first passing through the spacious outer room. Continuing inwards, passing through a passageway, he reached the first floor of the scripture depository where the book storage was located. In the book storage that occupied several thousand square meters, there were neat rows of bookshelves, only the bookshelves were currently completely empty. Lin Feng frowned. Does this mean I have to fill it up myself? His fingers rubbed the bookshelves, feeling as if there was a faint spiritual energy flowing within. The trajectory was subtle and profound, he couldn't help but be moved. After pondering for a while, a purple light suddenly lit up in Lin Feng's eyes. Within the purple light, the profound meaning of incantations continuously circulated. It was the Great Thunder Monastery's Buddhist technique that Lin Feng had obtained from the lottery system, the art of Akala. The art of Akala he obtained from the system back then was only the first half. Later on, when he killed monk Kong Fa in the Black Cloud Earth Palace, Lin Feng obtained the complete art of Akala. But at this moment he did not release the complete version of the technique, instead only giving out the first half of the art of Akala. These scriptures, under the effect of Lin Feng's mana, condensed into a Buddhist scripture with a purple cover and golden words, landing on the bookshelf. Lin Feng patiently observed for a moment, but there was no change to the Buddhist scripture. The bookshelf and the book storage itself also had no reaction. After thinking for a moment, Lin Feng poured his own mana into the bookshelf. At this moment, the spiritual energy flow within the bookshelf instantly changed, the original trajectory and pattern changed. After absorbing and transforming Lin Feng's mana, it poured it into the Buddhist scripture on the bookshelf. That Buddhist scripture instantly changed. The originally solid scripture was surrounded by purple light, gradually turning into an illusion. The size of the illusion gradually became larger. Within the purple light countless runes pulsed, merging into the illusion. When the purple light completely dissipated, the illusion once again became solid, changing back into the appearance of the scripture. But compared to before, the Buddhist scripture was clearly twice as thick. Lin Feng flipped open the Buddhist scripture, seeing that what was recorded within was already the complete version of the art of Akala. Is that all? Lin Feng looked around at the bookshelves that were filled to the brim, slightly frowning. He put down the scripture and came to the center of the first floor of the library. Silently a formation was emitting a gentle light here. Lin Feng stepped into the formation, the light suddenly became dazzling. The next moment Lin Feng was already transported to the second floor of the library. Different from the first floor filled with bookshelves, the second floor was incomparably spacious. The large space was completely empty. Lin Feng walked all the way in front of the wall, seeing that there were many scrolls hanging on the wall. Only these scrolls that were unfolded were all blank, without anything written on them. Silently sensing the aura of these scrolls, Lin Feng raised his hand and pointed. Another purple light shot out, landing on a blank scroll. Within the purple light appeared many dark green runes, constantly pulsing. Once they landed on the scroll, they rapidly merged into it. On the originally blank scroll, suddenly images appeared, green mountains and clear waters, vivid and lifelike. Lin Feng's divine sense entered the scroll. The scenery in front of him suddenly changed, as if he had really entered a dark green world. In this world, dark green lunar true water silently flowed. Just by being in this environment, one could comprehend some of the true meaning of the lunar true explanation, comprehending the mysteries of the lunar true water, this kind of spiritual object created by heaven and earth. Lin Feng's divine sense retreated from this world. His finger pointed at another blank scroll. Another purple light shot out. This time, within the purple light flashed golden runes. Once the purple light came into contact with the second scroll also immediately changed. On the blank scroll appeared a blazing sun in the sky, illuminating the entire world. Lin Feng's consciousness entered inside, and all that entered his eyes was the bright and dazzling divine light of the true fire of the sun. Being in this world of golden light, he could clearly feel the blazing heat of the true fire of the sun and the profound mysteries of the great sun illuminating heaven's scripture. These scrolls, according to the recorded Tao art, can create a virtual space, a space completely formed by the profound mysteries of the Tao art. At this moment, Lin Feng completely understood. Cultivating this unique Tao art in such a space can yield twice the results with half the effort, greatly increasing the efficiency. This discovery made Lin Feng feel very satisfied. He didn't rush to fill in the scrolls, but directly went up to the third floor. The first and second floors each had their own uses, presumably the third floor would be even more wondrous. Coming to the third floor through the spirit array, looking at the scene in front of him, Lin Feng was slightly stunned. The area of the third floor was far smaller than the first and second floors. The layout was simple, just a few bamboo tables, a few bamboo chairs, and through the railing, one could clearly see the world outside the scripture depository. There was nothing special, it was as ordinary as the pavilions of mortals. Lin Feng naturally wouldn't think that the third floor of the scripture depository was so ordinary. He used his own magic power to explore, but he actually felt like he had hit a wall. Slightly frowning, Lin Feng came to the railing, climbing up high to look into the distance. The alchemy room was just beside. In the distance was the incomparably thick profound heaven treasure tree. It was like a city. Under the treasure tree, Zhu Yi was sitting cross-legged. In front of him were more than 30 new disciples. Clearly, Zhu Yi had already entered the role, and was teaching them Tao arts. Lin Feng smiled, gently stroking the railing of the scripture depository made of purple bamboo, his mind becoming one with the entire scripture depository, and he gradually felt some clues. It seems that I have to wait until I advance to the primordial soul boundary before I can fully unleash the wonders of the third floor of the scripture depository. Lin Feng had a feeling. He shrugged his shoulders. Forget it, for now, the first 2 floors are enough. As he was thinking, a system notification suddenly sounded in Lin Feng's mind. System upgrade complete. Lucky draw system and redemption system can now be used. Lin Feng's spirit was lifted, and his consciousness immediately entered the lucky draw system. But this time, he did not enter directly. The first thing that came into view was a system notification. System upgrade to the 3rd level. The host has obtained the latest benefits. At the beginning of every month, the host will automatically receive a lucky draw opportunity. Lin Feng was stunned for a long time before he came back to his senses, but his first reaction was not one of happiness, but one of wariness. Damn, could the system be plotting something? In view of the system's usual deceitful behavior, Lin Feng was not afraid to speculate about it with the worst of intentions. Looking at the system description carefully, he realized that it did not seem to be playing any word games, nor did it seem to be a trap. Lin Feng clicked his tongue in wonder. Did the sun rise from the west today? Unfortunately, it was already past the beginning of May. If he wanted to verify whether the system was plotting something, he would have to wait until June. Forget it, I'll see what tricks you're playing then. After thinking for a while, Lin Feng put the matter at the back of his mind for the time being, and his consciousness entered the lucky draw system. He would first use the 2 lucky draw opportunities that he had obtained from taking in disciples. These 2 chances should not be a problem. Lin Feng first entered the roulette system that he was most confident in, and after carefully looking at the items that he had drawn, his eyes suddenly lit up. This is good. The Heaven Spirit Replenishing Pill could improve the user's talent in cultivating Tao techniques, effective on the first use. When Lin Feng saw this item, he could not take his eyes off it. With the alchemy room's ability to reverse infer pill recipes from pills, if I can get this Heaven Spirit Replenishing Pill, I can completely mass-produce this type of pill. Without hesitation, Lin Feng immediately set his sights on the Heaven Spirit Replenishing Pill, and started to spin the roulette. Chapter 227. After roughly calculating the position of the Heaven Spirit replenishing pill, Lin Feng had an idea and began to spin the roulette. Lin Feng stared nervously at the spinning roulette. After 3 revolutions, the roulette speed slowed down significantly. After another half revolution, it looked like it was about to stop. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. According to his calculations, after the roulette spun 3.5 times, it would stop at the 3rd grid, which was the Heaven Spirit replenishing pill. According to the rules, after the roulette spun 3.5 times, it would stop at the 1st to 4th grid. Before, Lin Feng always chose the 3rd grid, and he always succeeded, so this time he also habitually chose the 3rd grid. However, a 1 in 4 chance was indeed not something that could be encountered every time. This time, the god of luck brushed past Lin Feng's shoulders. After the roulette spun 3.5 times, it stopped at the 2nd grid, refusing to move forward no matter what. Lin Feng shook his head slightly. It was really not good to force things that were based on probability. Looking at the rewards this time, Lin Feng scratched his head. Before starting the lottery, he had already observed the prizes around the Heaven Spirit replenishing pill, so he had an idea of all of them. The dragon tendon rope was made from the tendons of the primordial sky dragon. It was extremely tough and was one of the toughest materials in the great heaven primordial world. After being made into a rope, its strength and toughness were top-notch materials. Lin Feng carefully looked at the dragon tendon rope in front of him. It had obviously been processed. Its thickness was no thicker than a human's finger. It was completely pale gold and emitted waves of oppressive dragon might. Although the dragon was already dead and even its tendons had been extracted to make a rope, the inherent power and spiritual energy in its bloodline still existed. Dragon tendon, dragon tendon. Lin Feng's hand that was holding the dragon tendon rope suddenly tightened. He had an idea. The vermilion flame demon eye that Yan Mingyue gave me was transformed from the eyeball of the primordial fire dragon, which was at the great sage level of the demon race. Yan Mingyue gave the vermilion flame demon eye as a congratulatory gift. Although it was extremely precious, it did not mean that she did not have any intention of testing it. It was true that the vermilion flame demonic pupil was a magic weapon embryo, but it did not mean that anyone could refine it into a magic weapon. Dharma treasures were treasures that could only be refined by primordial divinity cultivators. However, it was not an easy task for primordial divinity cultivators to refine Dharma treasures. They also needed to find the essence of the Dharma treasure embryo. It was too difficult to refine something out of thin air. This was also the value of a magic treasure embryo. As for cultivators below the nascent divinity stage, even if they obtained the magic treasure embryo, they could only look at it and drool. There were only 2 results for forcefully refining it. First, if the embryo was completely destroyed, it would still be a precious treasure, but it would lose its original spirituality. The artifact that was refined would at most be at the level of a Yuanying artifact. Second, the magical treasure embryo's own spiritual sense was too strong. If it resisted this completely unqualified refiner, it might even run away. Lin Feng had never been afraid to speculate about others with the worst of intentions. In his opinion, Yan Mingyue had the intention of observing him to see how long it would take for him to refine the vermilion flame demon eye from an embryo into a real Dharma treasure. If Lin Feng moved quickly, Yan Mingyue could be sure that Lin Feng's cultivation level had already reached the primordial divinity stage. However, if Lin Feng did not make a move after a long time, Yan Mingyue would inevitably become suspicious and make all sorts of guesses. Vermilion flame demon eye, dragon tendon. Primordial sky dragon. It might work. Lin Feng pondered for a moment and smiled. Under normal circumstances, Dharma treasures can indeed only be refined by primordial divinity cultivators. But the problem is that I'm not an ordinary person. However, it's still very difficult. I need to plan carefully. Having made up his mind, Lin Feng temporarily put the matter of the vermilion flame demon eye and dragon tendon rope to the back of his mind. His attention returned to the lucky draw system. Lin Feng was somewhat depressed that he did not get the Heaven Spirit Imperfection Replenishing Pill on his first draw. The second draw would reset the items to be drawn. Lin Feng entered the lucky draw system and took a careful look, only to feel even more depressed. This time, there was no Heaven Spirit Imperfection Replenishing Pill among the items listed by the lucky draw system. Be it the roulette system or the dice system, there was no sign of the Heaven Spirit Imperfection Replenishing Pill. Lin Feng cursed inwardly as he exited the lucky draw system and entered the exchange system. As he scrolled down the list, the Heaven Spirit Imperfection Replenishing Pill's name suddenly came into view. Don't be agitated. Lin Feng took a deep breath and composed himself before he dared to look at the pill's exchange price. The moment he saw it, he nearly fainted. 8,000 exchange points. Among all the elixir-related items in the exchange system, its price was second only to the 33 Heaven's Fortune Immortal Pill. Lin Feng's heart instantly turned cold. A price of 8,000, even if he added up all of his wealth in all of his history, it would not be enough. If the thing that Lin Feng hated the most about the system was the main quest's ridiculous punishment, then the thing he hated the second most was that the exchange points were too low. The exchange points were too low, but that wasn't the main point. The main point was that the exchange points were too expensive. This made Lin Feng want to curse. He had made a fortune at the Sand Region's Vast Ocean Magic Assembly's auction, and Mei Wulang had given him a huge gift on behalf of Emperor Zhou Yangpan. In the real world, Lin Feng's net worth was already quite high. He couldn't compare to those large clans that had thousands of years of history, but compared to most people, Lin Feng was a true tycoon. However, in his own exchange system, Lin Feng had always been penniless. He had never enjoyed the joy of shopping. Looking at the few hundred points he had, then looking at the price of the Heaven Spirit Replenishing Pill, Lin Feng was so depressed that he wanted to beat someone up. He swore that if this exchange system was a shop in the real world, he would definitely go there and rob it. Lin Feng let out a long sigh. He exited the exchange system and went to the lottery system. There was only one chance left. Lin Feng chose the lottery system without hesitation. His target was the Heaven Spirit Replenishing Pill. The lottery system had 4 types of lottery sticks. If he drew a red lot, he would be able to obtain the item he wanted from the exchange system. Even if the item's original price was in the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of points, he would still be able to obtain it. Lin Feng wanted to gamble on the red lot and obtain the Heaven Spirit Replenishing Pill. However, Lin Feng had to spend some time thinking about what he should use as collateral. After carefully inspecting his current wealth, Lin Feng fell into deep thought. Those Buddhist sarairas. That doesn't seem appropriate. I feel that they can be used in a way that other treasures can't. Profound Raven Jade Carving. This thing contains the principles of dark magic, it still has some use. But it's not as precious as the Heaven Spirit Replenishing Pill. Using it as collateral, the chances of drawing a red lot are probably very low. The Wind and Lightning Seal is the same. The Wasteland Element 9 Refinements God Lightning Net, Universe Mirror and Bronze Void Cauldron, these 3 great Yuanying stage magic tools have already been bestowed by Lin Feng to Xiao Yan and the rest. Lin Feng also has no plans of taking them back. That's right, I almost forgot. After thinking for a moment, Lin Feng patted his head and took out an ink brush. This ink brush is precisely the life-bound magic tool of the head manager of the House of the Marquis of Xuanji, Mr. Zhang Hai, the Spring and Autumn Brush. Back when Zhang Hai had been captured by Lin Feng's small world, he had almost been reduced to dust by Lin Feng's heaven and earth extinction technique. Fortunately, Mei Wulang had appeared in time to plead for his life, and Lin Feng had spared his life. But this Spring and Autumn Brush, Lin Feng straightforwardly took it. The Spring and Autumn Brush is Zhang Hai's life-bound magic tool. Combined with the divine ability Celestial Talisman he cultivates, it can unleash extremely powerful battle strength. In the Battle of the Wasteland outside Sand Continent City, even though Zhu Yi was able to contend with him, but as the battle drags on, Zhang Hai will gain the upper hand. In the Battle of the Wasteland, Zhu Yi, Xiao Yan and Xiao Budian fought against 3 great Yuanying stage cultivators. In reality, it was Zhu Yi who was under the most pressure and had the least chance of winning. In the past, 2 Yuanying stage elders of the Great Thunder Temple died at Zhang Hai's hands. It can be seen just how powerful this person's divine ability is. But for Lin Feng, this spring and autumn brush is of little value. It doesn't fit with any of the Dao techniques or divine abilities that he cultivates. Right now, using it as collateral for drawing lots is perfect. Lin Feng immediately staked the spring and autumn brush. He stared at the lot pot in the air of the lottery system. Very quickly, 30 lots appeared on top of the lot pot. 6 red lots. Lin Feng immediately confirmed this and breathed a sigh of relief. The highest probability of a red lot appearing was 6. With a 20% probability, he couldn't ask for more. In addition to the 6 red lots, there were a total of 15 long white lots that randomly drew items. There were 6 long white lots that returned the mortgage chips and wasted a lucky draw chance. There were 3 short white lots that returned empty-handed. Lin Feng breathed a huge sigh of relief. Using a Yuanying stage magic tool as collateral was indeed very powerful. Relatively speaking, the number of red and long white lots that would result in a better result reached 21. A 70% probability was already very high. Lin Feng still remembered the first time he drew lots. There were only 3 red lots and 9 long white lots, which was only a 40% probability. Start drawing the lots. Lin Feng gave the order. The 30 lots fell into the lot pot and spun rapidly in the pot. After a while, they stopped, and all the lots were placed in the pot silently. The exposed parts of the lots were exactly the same. There was no difference in appearance. Lin Feng didn't waste any time. He just tried his luck and randomly picked one. When the lot floated out of the pot, Lin Feng instantly wailed. Fuck! It was white. A smile that was uglier than crying appeared on Lin Feng's face. Did I really lose all my luck in the past few draws that went well every time? He looked at the lot and smiled bitterly. At least he was somewhat comforted by the fact that he had drawn a long white lot. Although the system said that the long white lot would randomly select items to exchange for collateral, based on his previous experience, the random items wouldn't be too bad. In fact, there might even be some good items. For example, Lin Feng's first sect construction token was obtained by drawing a long white lot. That's the only way I can comfort myself now. Lin Feng smiled bitterly and shook his head. He watched as the long white lot flashed 3 times in the air before turning into a white light and landing in front of him. When the white light dissipated, it was a box. Lin Feng blinked his eyes. After opening the box, there was nothing inside. At that moment, a system notification rang in Lin Feng's ears. Lin Feng was stunned when he heard it, and then he laughed out loud. What's the old saying again? When God closes a door for you, a window will definitely open. Ha, Heaven Spirit Supplement Pill, here I come. Chapter 228. The lottery system drew out a long white lot. Lin Feng's heart had already turned cold. Who knew that the long white lot would give out a random item, a chest? After opening the chest, a system notification rang in Lin Feng's ears. Congratulations, host. You've received a big gift bag of exchange points. Lin Feng was stunned. Then, he broke into a smile. What's the old saying? When God closes a door for you, a window will definitely open. You can't run away from what belongs to me. After laughing, Lin Feng calmed down. Wait, don't be too happy. It's a big gift bag, but who knows how many exchange points it will give. If it's only 800 or 1000 points, then I'll be happy for nothing. This was not impossible. When he opened the newbie gift bag, he only got 300 exchange points. It was extremely shabby. Lin Feng entered the exchange system uneasily. He carefully looked at his current exchange points and instantly sucked in a breath of cold air. This big gift bag directly gave 10,000 exchange points. After a while, Lin Feng came back to his senses. He laughed loudly. I'm rich now. I've gone from subsistence to well-off overnight. Heaven's Spirit replenishing pill, I'm coming. Ignoring everything else, Lin Feng directly took the Heaven Spirit replenishing pill. The 8,000 exchange points instantly disappeared. Even though his wealth was rapidly shrinking, the pleasure of spending money like this still made Lin Feng feel very good. The key was that he had been too poor previously. He had carefully calculated and spent 800 exchange points, but he could only look at items that were worth a few thousand points and drool. He really did not dare to look at items that were worth more than 10,000 exchange points. He was afraid that his heart would ache. Lin Feng squeezed the Heaven Spirit replenishing pill in his hand. He carefully looked at it. This pill was the size of a baby's fist. It was completely translucent and snow-white. There was a faint black color in the center of the pill. This black core would appear and disappear from time to time. It was as if there was a hole that was constantly being repaired. The most amazing thing was that when Lin Feng's mind communicated with this pill, he could actually faintly feel some emotional fluctuations, as if it was a life with its own happiness, anger, sorrow, and joy. The biggest difference between magic treasures and magic tools is that magic treasures will produce their own weapon spirits and have their own consciousness. Lin Feng thought in his heart, now it seems that there is a big difference between high-grade pills and low-grade pills. High-grade pills are the same as magic treasures. They will develop their own consciousness and gradually form a pill spirit. Lin Feng carefully observed the Heaven Spirit Repair pill and felt the waves of medicinal power within it. He found that although the Heaven Spirit Repair pill already had signs of life, it was not like the hexagonal sword, which truly had a complete and clear self-awareness and memories. He brought the Heaven Spirit replenishing elixir to Sky Gold Pavilion and used the silver 8 trigrams to derive the elixir recipe of the Heaven Spirit replenishing elixir. The derivation this time took longer than the derivation of the Supreme Elixir. But soon, the recipe for the Heaven Spirit Repair pill appeared in front of Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked at the recipe and had an idea in his heart. Although the refining process is difficult, with the help of the Heavenly Gold Pavilion and the outer core furnace, it should be able to overcome the difficulties. However, it seems that the required medicinal ingredients are not available on Yujing Mountain. Lin Feng left the Heavenly Gold Pavilion and came to the valley where the medicinal field was. As soon as he arrived, Lin Feng's heart stirred slightly. Landing on the peak of the mountain, Lin Feng looked down into the valley and saw a young man in purple squatting there, skillfully pruning a spirit flower. This kind of pruning could make the spirit flower more vigorous and more conducive to its flowering. Lin Feng nodded slightly. The system once mentioned that Yang Qing is quite talented in the cultivation of spirit herbs and medicine. Now it seems that it's not just talent. He is also very passionate about this path and has an extraordinary hobby. Yang Qing had a smile on his face. His movements were gentle and smooth, full of an artistic sense of rhythm. In Lin Feng's impression, Yang Qing was always gentle and humble, with some restraint and inferiority complex. It was rare to see him do something so relaxed and confident. After pruning the spirit flower, Yang Qing stood up, a relaxed smile on his face. However, this smile disappeared in a flash. His expression became a little startled and sad. Although his gaze was across the valley, he still looked into the distance. In his sad mood, Lin Feng acutely captured some anger, doubt, and manic emotions. Is he thinking about the water cloud cave that was inexplicably destroyed? Lin Feng did not mind that Yang Qing missed his old sect. A person who valued relationships was much better than an ingrate. Yang Qing was in a daze for a while. He lowered his head to look at the spirit flowers and spirit herbs in front of him. Suddenly, he lost interest and even felt a little guilty and remorseful. He walked to the side and sat cross-legged. He began to meditate and cultivate attentively. Lin Feng shook his head slightly. He came to Yang Qing's side and said, having determination is a good thing, but forcibly suppressing one's nature will only yield half the results with twice the effort. Yang Qing was startled. He hurriedly stood up and bowed to Lin Feng. Master. Lin Feng waved his hand, indicating for him to sit down. At the same time, he also sat cross-legged on the ground. He said slowly, you have a relaxed nature and love nature. Although you are a little lazy, it may be the most suitable path for you. Yang Qing pursed his lips and said in a low voice, I know that my strength is low. Being accepted as a personal disciple by Master, I am very scared. Therefore, I want to work hard and not let Master down. He paused for a moment, then lowered his voice even further. The water cloud cave was destroyed. I was very sad and angry, but I didn't even know who the enemy was. I didn't know what to do, but I thought that increasing my strength shouldn't go wrong. Lin Feng faintly smiled, everyone has their own path to walk, there's a path that suits them. There's nothing wrong with trying to make changes, but if it's completely contrary to one's nature, this kind of change often won't have any good results. Yang Qing smiled embarrassedly. Third senior brother is so strong even though he has not built his spirit platform. But he is still not satisfied. Instead, he works even harder. Seeing that third senior brother is working so hard, I can't help but want to learn from him. Lin Feng grinned. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. The third senior brother that Yang Qing mentioned was naturally Wang Lin. Is it that everyone is more easily attracted to what others have and what they lack? Lin Feng's imagination ran wild. If he really had to say, Wang Lin and Yang Qing were simply two extremes. Not only in terms of talent and potential, but even in terms of character, they stood on the opposite side. Lin Feng said lightly, just now, I said that everyone has their own path. It is good to learn from the strengths of others, but you also have to combine it with your own actual situation. You are indifferent and yearn for nature. Blindly cultivating is not suitable for you. Get closer to nature and understand the principles and concepts within. It will be more enlightening for your cultivation. Yang Qing nodded vigorously. Disciple will follow Master's teachings. Lin Feng looked at the medicinal field in front of him and said with a smile, from today onwards, you will take care of this place. Are you willing? Yang Qing was stunned. Me? You don't have to worry that this will delay your cultivation of Tao. Lin Feng looked at Yang Qing and said slowly, you will be accompanied by hundreds of herbs here. The speed of your improvement in Tao will be faster than if you just bury yourself in cultivation. Why wouldn't I be willing? Yang Qing shook her head and said, disciple will definitely follow Master's orders. I am just afraid that I will not do well and waste such a good medicinal field. Lin Feng shook his head and said with a smile, there is your eldest senior brother's heavenly lucky doll here to fertilize the soil. Coupled with your own lunar true water irrigation, as long as you do not mess around, it will not be wasted. Yang Qing immediately said, disciple obeys. I will definitely do my best and not let Master down. Relax, it is not as serious as you think. Lin Feng smiled and pointed with his finger. A purple aura landed in front of Yang Qing. The purple aura dissipated, and a scarlet silk appeared in front of Yang Qing. This item is called the Devil-Destroying Vermilion Silk. It is an artifact of the Golden Elixir period. However, it cannot be used in battle and has no effect against external enemies. Lin Feng said lightly, however, this treasure has a miraculous effect on people's inner demons and evil thoughts. Master will give it to you now. Hearing this, Yang Qing happily accepted the devil-destroying vermilion silk. She did not feel disgusted or dissatisfied because this artifact could not be used in battle. Instead, she smiled and said, thank you, Master. Lin Feng smiled slightly, and his evaluation of Yang Qing was a little higher. It was not because he knew how to be grateful, not greedy, and not biting off more than he could chew. It was because Yang Qing had obviously realized that the biggest problem in his cultivation was that his will was not firm enough, and it was easy to cause inner demons and evil thoughts. To be able to clearly understand one's strengths and weaknesses, and admit it calmly and seek a way to correct it was easy to say, but in fact, many people could not do this. Lin Feng sent a message to Yu Hongyan, asking her to come here. After a while, Yu Hongyan rushed to the medicinal valley. She still had long flame-like hair, but her original red clothes had now been replaced with purple clothes. After officially becoming Lin Feng's disciple, Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing also changed into clothes similar to Xiao Yan's. In addition to Yu Hongyan, Zhu Yi and Tiny Tot also came together. After they saluted and greeted Lin Feng together, Lin Feng did not pay attention to Zhu Yi and Tiny Tot, but looked at Yu Hongyan and said with a smile, as long as it is a personal disciple of Master, when they reach the foundation establishment stage, Master will give them a golden elixir period artifact. This one is specially prepared for you. Lin Feng flicked his finger, and a purple aura carried a soft armor and floated in front of Yu Hongyan. The soft armor was weaved with pieces of jade, and its color was crystal clear. It was the golden elixir period powerful defensive artifact that Lin Feng had previously obtained from the lottery, the ancient jade armor. From the outside, it looked as fragile as a piece of paper, like a decorative shelf, but in fact, its defense was extremely strong. There were only a few artifacts in the golden elixir period. As for Yu Hongyan, whether he was a technical or a head-on attacker, his overall style was bold, unstoppable, and unbelievably ferocious. Her fighting style was extremely fierce. The more fierce the enemy was, the more fierce she was. She would fight attack with attack, and never retreat. But on the other hand, such a fighting style seriously did not protect herself. One careless move would cause both sides to suffer, and the result would be mutual destruction. Lin Feng did not intend to correct her style, so he started from the aspect of strengthening her weakness. He gave her the ancient jade armor to improve her defense. In the future, when she fought head-on with others, even if the opponent wanted to exchange blood with her, she would not be at a disadvantage. Obviously, Yu Hongyan also knew her own weakness. Her face was slightly red, and she happily accepted the ancient jade armor. At this time, Lin Feng turned to look at Zhu Yi and Tiny Tot, and said with a smile, "What's wrong?" Zhu Yi bowed and answered, "Master, I was just explaining Tao techniques to the new disciples, and I found a problem. Our sect's 8 trigrams universal great way is too profound, and the new disciples are basically unable to understand the mystery within." Chapter 229. Zhu Yi bowed to Lin Feng and said, "Master, I just explained Tao to the new disciples and found a problem. Our sect's 8 trigrams great way scripture is too profound. The new disciples who don't have a foundation in Tao are basically unable to comprehend its mysteries." Lin Feng faintly smiled, he had already expected this. Years ago, when his cultivation reached the 12th level of Qi disciple, he combined 8 types of Tao and used the system to create the 8 trigrams great way scripture. It was originally for him to build his foundation. Later on, Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, and the others also waited until they reached the peak of Qi disciple before they started to cultivate the 8 trigrams great way scripture. Lin Feng's explanation at the time was that his sect's Tao could only be considered to have started when they reached the foundation stage. Of course, when Xiao Yan and the others entered the sect, the 8 trigrams great way scripture had yet to be created. But objectively speaking, the 8 trigrams great way scripture was indeed a bit profound for Qi disciple cultivators. Especially for mortals who had no foundation in Qi disciple, it was not impossible to cultivate the Tao, but it was more difficult and would feel more difficult. It had a high requirement for perception, understanding, and comprehension. So there was only one person who could cultivate it before reaching the peak of Qi disciple, and that was Lin Feng's 3rd disciple, Wang Lin. But who was Wang Lin? Although his foundation was trash, he was a freak with a heaven-defying perception. With regards to this aspect, Lin Feng already had a solution. After all, a sect needed the most basic Tao for new disciples who had no foundation to cultivate. But he didn't say it right away, he wanted to see Zhu Yi's response. In your opinion, how should the problem be solved? Lin Feng asked with a smile. Zhu Yi raised his head to look at his master and thought to himself, looks like master has already made arrangements and is testing me. He already had a plan in mind, so he didn't panic. He calmly replied, I have thought of 2 ways to deal with this situation, please advise me, master. Firstly, just like how master taught us back then, teach in accordance with their aptitude. First, choose different basic Tao techniques that are suitable for them and lead them in. When the time is ripe, then teach them the 8 trigrams universal great Tao scripture. Secondly, after simplifying the 8 trigrams Great Way scripture of the heavens, we will obtain a simplified version for the new disciples to practice. Once they have a foundation, we will teach them the complete version of the 8 trigrams Great Way scripture of the heavens. Zhu Yi paused for a moment and said softly, I've been organizing the teaching materials recently, and I've made some arrangements for the simplification of the 8 trigrams of the Great Way of the heavens. Master, please take a look. Lin Feng smiled, little Yi, you are very good. You really put in a lot of effort. Not only was he diligent in teaching the new disciples, but Zhu Yi had also put in a lot of effort in the cultivation of Tao techniques. Refining and simplifying a Tao technique to get a simplified version was not something that could be done by just deleting and changing. It was a very difficult thing to not distort the original essence and mystery of the Tao technique. One must have a deep understanding of the Tao technique to be able to do it. Yang Qing and Yu Hongyan looked at Zhu Yi with admiration in their eyes. After they became Lin Feng's disciples, they also had to teach the 8 trigrams universal Great Way scripture and transform their mana foundation into Tao scripture mana. The more they cultivated, the more they felt the subtlety and mystery of the 8 trigrams universal Great Way scripture. There were always endless principles waiting for them to explore. Zhu Yi was able to modify the original Tao technique foundation, which made Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing admire him. Lin Feng smiled, the first method is not feasible. That day, when I was dealing with you, I wanted you to give full play to your natural strengths and nurture your own unique understanding of the Tao of heaven and earth. But the situation of these disciples is very different from you. Lin Feng did not hide it, the gap in talent between them and you is very big, so it is not suitable for them to walk the same path as you. Xiao Budian smiled and did not speak. Zhu Yi also looked as usual. They were not arrogant and complacent, but they would not belittle themselves. Lin Feng continued, so, of the 2 methods you mentioned, the second one is more feasible. Zhu Yi nodded and presented the simplified version of the Tao scripture that he had figured out to Lin Feng to have a look. After Lin Feng looked at it, he did not speak. Instead, he was a little distracted. It is already very good, but if Wang Lin reaches the golden elixir period and thoroughly understands the 8 trigrams universal Great Way scripture, he, who has a full understanding of the 8 trigrams universal Great Way scripture, will get a better simplified version of the Tao scripture. Of course, Lin Feng could not say this in front of Zhu Yi. He smiled slightly, very good, but there are some places that can be better. As he spoke, he made some changes to Zhu Yi's simplified version of the Tao scripture, all of which pointed out the flaws in the Tao technique. Lin Feng himself was the creator of the 8 trigrams universal Great Way scripture. At this moment, he, who had already formed Yuanying, could already be said to have a perfect understanding of this Tao technique. Previously, he himself had already simplified the Tao scripture, so that new disciples who had no foundation could cultivate it. At this moment, comparing it with Zhu Yi's version, he could naturally modify the parts that were not perfect. Zhu Yi obtained Lin Feng's modified version, and after looking at it, he immediately gasped in admiration. Xiao Budian looked at it from the side, and also smiled, master is master. Lin Feng patted his little head, and scolded with a smile, what else do you think? Xiao Budian shrunk his head, and laughed. Zhu Yi continued, although it is a simplified version of the 8 trigrams Universal Great Way scripture, it is already a brand new Tao technique. Master, please name it. Xiao Budian smiled, since it is a simplified version, then let's call it the 8 trigrams Universal Great Way scripture. Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing listened from the side, and both smiled. Zhu Yi was stunned, and also shook his head and laughed. Lin Feng glanced at Zhu Yi, and suddenly had a mischievous thought. He coughed dryly, speaking of which, this Tao technique can also be considered the crystallization of Xiaoyi's efforts. It is the collection, arrangement, and interpretation of our sect's 8 trigrams Universal Great Way scripture. Aha, so this new Tao technique will be called Zhu Zi's 8 trigrams Universal Great Way scripture. For short, Zhu Zi's Universal Great Way scripture. Lin Feng said in his heart, Elder Zhu Zi, I think you won't mind if I tease you a little. So what if I mind? If you have the ability, climb out of your grave and hit me. I'm in another world. When Zhu Yi heard Lin Feng's words, his expression immediately changed. He became incomparably solemn, and even carried a bit of divine radiance. Zi is the great wisdom, benevolence, courage, and merit of the ancient 100 schools of thought. That's why you can add the word Zi behind your surname. He said slowly, disciple doesn't have this qualification now, but I will definitely work hard in this direction. One day, I will truly be able to bear this title, and I will definitely not disappoint Master. When Xiao Budian and the others heard this, they all knew that this was Zhu Yi's great wish, and they were extremely serious. Xiao Budian stopped laughing and patted Zhu Yi's shoulder, second senior brother, you can do it. Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing also wished Zhu Yi well. On the other hand, Lin Feng grinned at the side, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. God, I really didn't mean that. Whether he meant that or not, Zhu Yi was now completely in the zone. He said seriously, I have something to report to Master. A gentleman should reflect on himself 3 times a day. After careful consideration, I have summarized 8 principles to encourage myself. Zhu Yi said very seriously, disciple calls them the 8 commandments, and intends to use them as the standard for daily behavior. Master, please correct disciple. Very good, you. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. Suddenly, he felt that something was wrong. The corner of his mouth began to twitch uncontrollably, and his eyes stared straight at Zhu Yi. What did you say just now? How many commandments? Zhu Yi blinked his eyes. The 8 commandments. The 8 commandments? The 8 commandments. Xiao Budian asked curiously, second senior brother, what are the 8 commandments? Zhu Yi cleared his throat. The first is to constantly strive to improve oneself, and be virtuous. The second is to be intelligent and cautious, and take precautions. The third is to be fearless of the strong, and not to bully the weak. The fourth is to be poor, and not to lose righteousness, and not to deviate from the way. The fifth is to be courageous and diligent, and to reflect 3 times a day. The sixth is to do things smoothly and smoothly. The seventh is to respect the elders, and protect the young. The 8th is to be beneficial to all things, and to be in harmony with righteousness. Ha! Xiao Budian blinked his big black eyes and said blankly, I don't understand. Yu Hongyan on the side looked ashamed and whispered, I don't understand the 4th, 6th, and 8th. Yang Qing thought for a moment and said, the poor is not to lose righteousness, and not to deviate from the way. It should be to say that one does not lose his benevolence and righteousness when he is poor, and not to deviate from the right way when he is rich. The 4th is to be smooth and smoothly. It should be to say that one can distinguish right from wrong, value friendship, and cherish oneself. Only in this way can one be successful in every endeavor. The 4th is to be beneficial to all things, and to be in harmony with righteousness. The scholar's benefit is not the benefit of benefit, but the benefit of benefit. A gentleman is beneficial to all things, and he can be in harmony with righteousness. Zhu Yi smiled and nodded, what fifth junior brother said is the principle of my generation. Vitality, enjoyment, benefit, and chastity are the four virtues of a gentleman. To educate the world, let the common people benefit, win survival, and then teach righteousness. This is the foundation. Xiao Budian said with a smile, although I don't understand it very well, it sounds very powerful. Second senior brother, your 8 commandments can also be called the 8 commandments of Zhu Zi, right? Zhu Yi smiled and said, I don't dare to say that. It's just that I used the principle from the province. They were chatting in full swing, and they didn't notice that Lin Feng next to them was already in a mess. 8 commandments. Second senior brother, looking at Zhu Yi, who was dressed in purple and dressed like a scholar, Lin Feng couldn't help but imagine a picture, and replace Zhu Yi's head with, stop. Stop. The picture was too beautiful, and he really couldn't think about it anymore. Little Yi, I've suddenly thought of something. Let's name that Tao art as notes to the 8 trigrams Taoist canon of Yi. The corners of Lin Feng's mouth twitched, and he coughed dryly, your 8 commandments can also be called the 8 commandments of Yi. Zhu Yi looked at Lin Feng in confusion. Lin Feng straightened his expression and said, your mother gave you the word Yi in the past. It has the meaning of revolutionizing the world and changing the universe. You must not let her down. At the mention of Meng Bingyun, Zhu Yi's expression immediately turned solemn. I will listen to master. Disciple will remember your teachings and not let mother and master down. That's good, that's good. Lin Feng secretly wiped away the cold sweat on his forehead. After sending off Zhu Yi and the others, Lin Feng entered a small heavenly world he had created with his magic power. There, the little Tao Tai Tunton was already so anxious that it was about to go berserk. On the Celerita's sword sex cloud-traversing peak, Murong Yenran was currently sitting in her cave dwelling in a daze. Taoist Tong Ling looked at her and sighed. After she just found out about Xiao Yan's current realm and strength, she was also the same as her. After hesitating for a moment, Taoist Tong Ling gritted his teeth and said, actually, there's still a way to solve it. Murong Yenran's eyes suddenly lit up, and she hurriedly grabbed the corner of Taoist Tong Ling's clothes. Master, what way? Chapter 230. Murong Yenran couldn't tell what she was feeling right now. Astonishment, disappointment, panic, and confusion. After so many years of cultivation, the face of that black-clothed youngster in Wuzhou City was actually already somewhat blurred. For a time, she had thought that the two of them were people from 2 different worlds. When the youth realized this, he would probably laugh at himself for being young and frivolous. From then on, he would throw his unrealistic fantasies to the back of his mind and walk his own path in life with his feet on the ground. The two of them would have nothing to do with each other from now on. 100 years later, that youngster would turn into a cup of dirt, and how far could she go on the path of cultivation? Murong Yenran once thought so, but at this moment, that youngster's declaration once again rang out in her mind, unprecedentedly clear. Miss Murong, I'll give you a sentence, the river flows east for 30 years, 30 years west for 30 years, don't bully the young for being poor. 3 years later, I'll find you. It wasn't just clear anymore, contacting Reverend Tong Ling to tell her about the current situation of Xiao Yan and Xianmen Tianzong. Xiao Yan's declaration that day, at this moment, was like Mount Tai pressing down on Murong Yenran's heart, making her feel like she couldn't breathe. Reverend Tong Ling looked at the dazed Murong Yenran, hesitating for a moment before gritting her teeth and saying, actually, there's still a way to solve it. Murong Yenran's eyes suddenly brightened, she hurriedly grabbed the corner of Reverend Tong Ling's clothes. Master, what way? Seeing her expression like a drowning person grabbing a life-saving straw, Reverend Tong Ling tilted her head, not daring to look directly into Murong Yenran's eyes. The Qin dynasty's crown prince Chongyun is going to choose a concubine soon, this is your chance. Murong Yenran opened her eyes wide. Master, Reverend Tong Ling sighed in her heart. When ancestor Qing Wei first proposed this plan, she was also stunned. Ancestor Qing Wei's intention was to marry Murong Yanran to the Qin dynasty's crown prince Chongyun before Xiao Yan came to challenge. Then it would be equivalent to transferring the conflict between Murong Yanran and Xiao Yan from Celerita's sword sect to Crown Prince Chongyun. The Great Qin dynasty indeed wasn't as centralized as the Great Zhou dynasty. In the Great Qin, the four great families had a lot of power and controlled large amounts of resources. At the same time, the Shushan sword sect, Celerita's sword sect, and other sects also monopolized many resources. However, the Great Qin dynasty's royal family was not weak, and they still had great control over the Great Qin dynasty's territory. They competed with the large families and sects, but they also depended on each other. When Murong Yanran married the crown prince of Chongyun, she was not an ordinary concubine, but a concubine second only to the crown princess. At this time, if Xiao Yan dared to cause trouble, then he would have to face the pressure of the entire Great Qin dynasty. Especially with Xianmen Tianzong's powerful rise and the fact that he seemed to have some connection with the Great Zhou dynasty, it was even easier to touch the nerves of the various powers of the Great Qin dynasty. This enormous power far surpassed the Celerita's sword sect. Ancestor Qing Wei thought proudly, "Don't mention a mere Xiao Yan, I think even that Xian Gate's master Lin Feng wouldn't dare to mess around. He can only swallow this loss." The only thing he needed to worry about was whether or not the crown prince of Chongyun was willing to be this hero. If the Celerita's sword sect used him like this, would it anger the heir of the Great Qin dynasty? When Daoist Tong Ling raised this question, Ancestor Qing Wei only lightly said, "Just do as I say. You don't need to ask about other things, I have my own plans." The question raised by Daoist Tong Ling, how could he not have thought about it? It's just that Daoist Tong Ling didn't know some of the secrets of the Celerita's sword sect. Only they, these Yuanying-level-old ancestors, knew. Long before he went to the Sand Continent to participate in the opening ceremony of Xianmen Tianzong, the Celerita's sword sect master and the sect elders had already made a decision to adjust the Celerita's sword sect's route in the future and get closer to the Great Qin dynasty. This time marrying Murong Yanran over could just deepen the relationship between the Celerita's sword sect and the Great Qin dynasty. It was killing two birds with one stone. And with the Celerita's sword sect as a whole getting closer, Crown Prince Chongyun would naturally have a decision in his heart. These things could even be discussed openly before the marriage, so Ancestor Qing Wei wasn't worried that Crown Prince Chongyun would be dissatisfied. What he needed to plan now was how to let Murong Yanran really become the Crown Prince's concubine. As far as he knew, there were still a lot of people eyeing this position. Ancestor Qing Wei lightly said, "You don't need to worry about other things. Go inform Yanran and let her be prepared." Spiritual Master Tong Ling looked at the shocked Murong Yanran in front of him and thought of Ancestor Qing Wei's instructions. He secretly sighed and said, "Yanran, you don't need to worry. This time you're marrying into the royal family as Crown Prince Chongyun's concubine. Your status is second only to the Crown Prince's concubine. And you have the sect backing you up. You don't need to worry about being bullied." Murong Yanran was so stunned she couldn't speak. She just looked at Spiritual Master Tong Ling with a strange gaze, as if this was the first day she met this teacher. Spiritual Master Tong Ling hardened his heart and said, "Could it be that you saw that Xiao Yan has soared to the sky now, so you want to continue your former fate with him?" Murong Yanran's eyes moved, her expression finally regaining its calm. Her gaze was a bit cold, whether it's the trash Xiao Yan back then or the Xiao Yan who has regained the title of genius now, breaking off the marriage is my choice. I have no complaints and no regrets. Then about the marriage between you and Crown Prince Chongyun? Spiritual Master Tong Ling closely followed up with a question. Murong Yanran gazed at the blue sky and white clouds outside the cave and lightly said, "Everything is up to Master. It's good that you can think it through." Spiritual Master Tong Ling patted Murong Yanran's shoulder and went out of the cave. She knew that her disciple needed to calm down. Only Murong Yanran was left in the cave. She gently closed her eyes and sat on the spot motionlessly. After a long time, her red lips opened slightly. Master, I'm sorry. I should be the master of my own life. I don't need a life arranged by others. Murong Yenran opened her eyes and showed a self-mocking smile on her face. The crown prince's concubine? So noble, but I don't care. If I let others choose a husband for me, why did I refuse the marriage with Xiao Yan back then? She jumped up and simply packed up her things. Then she calmly walked out of the cave. On the road, she greeted her fellow disciples as usual, very natural. An hour later, Spiritual Master Tong Ling got the news that Murong Yenran had gone down the mountain. Silly, silly. Spiritual Master Tong Ling secretly cursed. She wanted to report to Ancestor Qing Wei, but before leaving, she hesitated. Perhaps because she was also a woman, she had a natural resistance to Ancestor Qing Wei's decision. Spiritual Master Tong Ling shook her head and sighed. I still have to report to Ancestor after all. At most, I can only buy you a little more time. Disciple, this is the only thing I can do for you. Spiritual Master Tong Ling soon regretted it. When she reported the news to Ancestor Qing Wei, she clearly saw the usually calm old man's body tremble slightly. You must find this evil disciple. Ancestor Qing Wei completely lost his composure. His former elegance and kindness all disappeared, and he suddenly burst into a roar. Spiritual Master Tong Ling looked at him in shock. Master, what on earth? Ancestor Qing Wei breathed heavily like a bellow. He said in a muffled voice, I just contacted Crown Prince Chongyun, and he has said that he will come to Yunqing Peak in person to discuss this matter. Spiritual Master Tong Ling was shocked. So soon. She didn't dare to go on because she found that Ancestor Qing Wei's eyes had turned red. She hurriedly left to find Murong Yenran. It took a long time for Ancestor Qing Wei to catch his breath. His old face was completely wrinkled like a chrysanthemum. This time he was completely overjoyed. He thought that after marrying Crown Prince Chongyun, Murong Yenran would be overjoyed when she got the news. He didn't expect that Murong Yenran would even give up being the Crown Prince's concubine and directly run away. Before Ancestor Qing Wei's side was stabilized, Murong Yenran first contacted Crown Prince Chongyun. The result was a complete tragedy. Murong Yenran, the bride, running away would bring an extremely terrifying consequence. Not to mention that Crown Prince Chongyun was stood up, Xiao Yan came to challenge but couldn't see her. This time the pressure from both sides was all on the Celeritas sword sect. In fact, it was pressing down on Qing Qi alone. The so-called lifting a rock and smashing one's own foot, this was exactly it. Ancestor Qing Wei instantly felt that the whole world in front of him had turned black and white. That girl must be caught and brought back. On Yujing Mountain, Zhu Yi took the new version of teaching materials to continue teaching. Xiao Budian was greedy and followed him. Yang Qing stayed in the Medicine Valley to take care of the spirit grass and spirit medicine. Although his Taiyin True Water was not like the Tianyi True Water that could transform everything, it was also a spirit spring water that was beneficial to life and had a wonderful effect in irrigating the medicine field. Yu Hongyan continued to figure out the Tao. After practicing the 8 diagrams Great Way of Heaven, she felt that her Tao had improved again. She believed that it wouldn't be long before she could condense a pill cauldron. Lin Feng sent away a few disciples and his own consciousness entered a small world of heaven. In this purple chi world, the little Tao Tai Tunten was anxiously circling. That was not only the anxiety brought about by the restriction of freedom, but also the irritation of a greedy person facing delicious food in front of him but he couldn't enjoy it. For Tunten, Lin Feng's cyclic sky purple chi was one of the most delicious things she had ever eaten in her life. If she hadn't been taught a lesson by Lin Feng before, she would have devoured this small world made of cyclic sky purple chi that trapped her. Seeing Lin Feng come, she snorted and curled her lips. Big liar, when are you going to let me out? Also, you said so many delicious things, are you going to keep your promise? Lin Feng also curled his lips. That last sentence is the main point, right? Tunten blushed and said fiercely, So what if it is? I'm a Tao Tai. Don't panic, said Lin Feng with a smile. The dawn is right in front of us. As he spoke, Lin Feng stretched out a finger and the cyclic sky-purple chi that formed the small world dissipated. The cage that imprisoned Tunten was released. Tunten was stunned for a moment before it cheered, I'm finally free. She landed on the ground and greedily breathed in the rich spiritual chi on Yujing Mountain. Looking at Yujing Mountain, her eyes immediately widened. Great! So many delicious things. Chapter 231. Tunten landed on the peak of Yujing Mountain and immediately began drooling as its gaze swept across the area. Heavens, am I dreaming? Why are there so many delicious things? Everything in the world could be eaten by the Tao Tai due to its innate ability. The only difference was whether it tasted good, whether it could be digested after eating, and whether it would cause diarrhea. There was no such thing as something cannot be eaten. In Tunten's eyes, the spirit grasses and medicines in the medicine fields in the valley, the group of disciples listening to Zhu Yi's teachings under the tree, the leaves and branches of the mysterious heaven treasure tree above his head, and even the rocks of Mount Yujing below his feet, were all like fragrant delicacies. Well, it's better not to eat humans, or that guy will most likely get angry with me. Tunten wiped its saliva and secretly glanced at Lin Feng. With a cheer, it charged towards the medicine fields in the valley. Lin Feng shook his head and laughed. With a thought, he communicated with everyone on the mountain. I have a pet, a young Tao Tai. It's currently active on the mountain. Nanhua and Shihao, don't interfere. Little Yen and the rest are responsible for capturing it alive. This can be considered as an assignment from your teacher. Everyone acknowledged in unison and Xiao Yan and the rest quickly took action. In a place where no one could see, Lin Feng smiled maliciously, I'll also let you kids know that there are all sorts of strange things in this boundless world, there are a lot of strong people, you guys can't afford to relax at all. As one of the 4 great ancient demons, the Taoyu's innate ability to swallow the world was extremely powerful. Although Tunten was still a peak demon commander and had yet to form a demon nascent to advance to a demon king, it had fused with the gunmetal tiger's body and the true sun fire. Coupled with its innate ability, it could definitely be said to be a top demon commander. Ordinary demon kings might not be its match, so it was perfect as a whetstone for Xiao Yan and the rest. Lin Feng's smile was as bright as the sun. Brats, don't underestimate the enemy or you'll suffer. Tunten's first target was the medicine field. Yang Qing, who was in charge of tending to the medicine field, was the first to encounter Tunten. Yang Qing only had the cultivation of the mid-foundation establishment stage and did not dare to tarry in the slightest, releasing all the great Yin true water he could control. Unexpectedly, Tunten's eyes lit up. It abandoned the herb field and looked at Yang Qing with drooling eyes. You really didn't lie to me. There really is great Yin true water. The little Tao Tai didn't hold back at all. It opened its small mouth and swallowed Yang Qing's lunar true water. Yang Qing hurriedly withdrew the great Yin true water and looked at Tunten in bewilderment. So little. Tunten grumbled unhappily as it flew in front of Yang Qing and fiercely said, Do you have any more? If you do, hand them over. Yang Qing's expression was somewhat strange as she looked at Tunten, accurately finding the loophole in Tunten's words. He said carefully, That's all. That was all. Tunten immediately became unhappy and grumbled, Why is it so little? It's just enough to rinse my mouth. Yang Qing wiped the cold sweat off her forehead and said with a dry smile, Please forgive me for my poor hospitality. It really is a pure-blooded Tao Tai. A tall figure appeared in the valley. It was Black Dragon Jiayu in human form. He looked up and down at Tunten with a surprised gaze. Sect Master really got a Tao Tai as a pet. Tunten immediately exploded in anger. Who's his sole pet? Don't talk nonsense if you don't know. Be careful that I don't hit you. Jiayu curled his lips. Your temper is quite wild. It seems that you were brought back by sect master not long ago. As a senior, let me teach you some experience. You can have a little temper, but you have to pay attention to the time and place. Sect master has already clearly said that he wants you back. You'd better obediently follow this old dragon. Jiayu calculated in his mind. Sect master only said that the two guardian elders can't take action, but he didn't forbid me from participating. If I successfully capture this Taotai, I believe sect master won't treat me badly, right? Yes, but there is a possibility that it will hurt the face of sect master's disciples. I have to think of a way to be comprehensive. While Jiayu was thinking happily, Tuntun's eyebrows were raised in anger. She looked at Jiayu and sneered. I have eaten dragon meat, but it's not the meat of an armored black dragon. I hope your taste is better. While speaking, Tuntun suddenly opened its mouth. There seemed to be a black hole in its mouth, emitting a huge suction force. Its small mouth seemed to be infinite and could swallow the entire world. It wanted to swallow Jiayu in one bite. Jiayu had been suppressed by Lin Feng. He didn't dare to lose his temper in front of Lin Feng, nor did he dare to vent his anger on Lin Feng and Xiao Yan and the other direct disciples of Lin Feng. At this moment, Tuntun was exactly what he wanted. The armored black dragon also sneered. Others are afraid of you, but my armored black dragon race is not afraid of you. While speaking, Jiayu's body trembled, and a huge amount of blood energy erupted. His figure flashed, and he directly broke away from the powerful suction force of Tuntun's devouring ability. Instead, he got close to Tuntun and punched with earth-shattering force. The devouring ability of the Taotai race was the most effective against spells. They were best at devouring all kinds of magic power and spirit chi. However, the armored black dragon race was not proficient in spells and focused on the body. Jiayu was not bragging when he said that he was not afraid of the Taotai. Tuntun didn't panic when it saw that its devouring ability could not defeat the enemy. It smiled. I am not an ordinary Taotai. Its body shone with a metallic luster, and it clashed head-on with Jiayu. Although it was defeated, it didn't suffer a big loss. A smile blossomed on Tuntun's face. Using the Gung-Metal Tiger King's body to reconstruct my physical body has indeed raised the strength of my physical body to a whole new level. It's not like I don't have the strength to fight back against this big fellow. Jiayu couldn't defeat Tuntun quickly in close combat, so he was the one at a disadvantage. Although he was not afraid of Tuntun's devouring ability, the golden true sun fire that suddenly rose from Tuntun's body could really threaten him. Fortunately, Jiayu had been cultivating on Yujing Mountain these days. Although he didn't form a demon nascent and advance to a demon king, he still gained a lot. A layer of black scales suddenly appeared on his body, and the scales were flashing with dense incantations. This layer of black scales unexpectedly withstood the burning of the true sun fire for a short period of time. In fact, Lin Feng's attention had never left Tuntun, and he didn't stop Jiayu from attacking. At this moment, when he saw Jiayu use this new refining black scales ability, Lin Feng's eyes also lit up. The armored black dragon race has a strong body and outstanding defense against physical attacks. This refining black scales ability seems to be specially used to increase the defensive power of spells. Not bad indeed. Lin Feng stared at Jiayu with a smile. Very good. In this way, the previous plan is really feasible. Jiayu seemed to feel something, and his body shivered. Not good, why do I have an ominous feeling? It seems that something bad is about to happen. Jiayu shook his head, throwing the distracting thoughts to the back of his mind and focused on fighting Tuntun. Let's see whether my physical strength will knock you down first, or your true sun fire will break through my refining black scales first. Tuntun could also see that although the true sun fire could break through the refining black scales, it clearly needed some time. She chuckled. You delivered yourself to me. The little Taotai suddenly opened its mouth and activated its devouring ability again. This time, it continuously devoured the demonic power that Jiayu used to maintain the refining black scales ability. Jiayu was stunned, and suddenly wanted to slap himself. He had been preventing the Tao Tai from devouring his power, but who knew that it would still happen? Sect Master, why did you give something like the true sun fire to this crazy girl? Jiayu's heart flowed like a river. This old dragon has been loyal and devoted, but I didn't get such a good thing. As a member of the dragon race, Jiayu should have very few opponents at the same cultivation level, especially since he did not cultivate magic and focused on physical abilities. He was the most hated opponent of the Taotai race. However, besides its devouring ability, Tunten also had the powerful physique from the Gung Metal Tiger King's body and the true sun fire. With these three attacks, the old dragon was immediately beaten to a pulp. Wang Lin had also arrived at the Herb Valley on his Fei Lian beast. He frowned as he watched the two demons fighting in the sky. This Tao Tai is not easy to deal with. The pressure from Tunten increased. Jiayu cursed inwardly and had no choice but to run far away. He wanted to run, and Tunten could not stop him. Her face was full of depression. Annoying, there is no more dragon meat to eat. She looked around and her eyes lit up when she saw the Fei Lian beast that Wang Lin was riding on. Although it's only a Fei Lian of the demon general level and has a mixed bloodline, it's still not bad meat. The Fei Lian beast noticed Tunten's gaze and shuddered. Wang Lin's frown deepened. Seeing Tunten's drooling appearance, he did not have the mood to talk and pointed with his finger. After witnessing Tunten's battle with Jiayu, Wang Lin had already realized how terrifying this demon was. He immediately entered the Yellow Springs Extermination Stage state and activated the All-Heaven Yellow Springs Finger's Finger of Extermination. A black domain of extermination and death chi directly enveloped Tunten. Tunten frowned. It opened its mouth and activated its devouring ability, swallowing all of Wang Lin's magic power that was filled with the power of nirvanic death. Wang Lin was dumbfounded. Tunten smacked its lips and made a retching motion with a bitter face. It's too disgusting. It's so uncomfortable. Lin Feng, who was in the air, was also speechless when he saw this scene. It's just uncomfortable. Given Lin Feng's current cultivation, his main body did not dare to say that it could swallow Wang Lin's power of nirvanic death. It was equivalent to simulating the nirvanic death of heaven and earth in one's body. The body of the war god doppelganger might be worth a try. Lin Feng shook his head. At the end of the day, little Lin's cultivation is still on the low side. If he was in the golden elixir period like Xiao Yan and Zhu Yi, Tunten would not be able to bear the consequences if he dared to eat the power of nirvanic death contained in his finger. Wang Lin quickly returned to his senses and grunted. Fifth junior brother. Yang Qing responded. She clapped her hands together and a vast amount of lunar true water surged out. It had even exceeded the limits of his control. Wang Lin also formed a hand seal with both hands and performed the Yellow Springs Road, paving a black-yellow road in the void. Unlike before, the shape of Wang Lin's Yellow Springs Road had changed. It was sunken in the middle and raised on both sides like a river. Yang Qing's lunar true water fell into this river. She didn't want to swallow the Yellow Spring real water, so when she saw the dim yellow water approaching her, she used the sun real fire to resist the Yellow Spring real water. The flickering sun real fire, which looked like thousands of golden needles clustered together, collided with the dim yellow spring real water. Both sides fiercely clashed. Tunten's cultivation was higher than Wang Lin's, but Wang Lin's Yellow Spring real water had the support of the underworld pearl. Neither side could do anything to the other for a while. This pearl is a good thing, but I wonder how it tastes. As he spoke, Tunten opened his mouth, and a powerful suction force immediately rushed towards the underworld pearl. Wang Lin's expression immediately changed. He wanted to withdraw the underworld pearl, but found that it had already been captured by Tuntun's power and he couldn't take it back. Let go. Wang Lin's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He pointed the finger of annihilation at Tuntun, but he couldn't stop Tuntun from using its power. The power of death from the finger of annihilation was directly swallowed by Tuntun. While Wang Lin was panicking, flames suddenly flashed in the sky and a powerful pressure shrouded Tuntun's head, making Tuntun feel a trace of pressure. 2 flame wings, one gold and one blue, opened and closed. Xiao Yan had already arrived at the scene. He stared at Tuntun and sneered, "You want to swallow my junior brother's treasure? Do you want this thing of mine?" As Xiao Yan roared, the 2 flame wings refined from the true sun fire and nether evil brilliance transformed into 2 vast seas of fire on the left and right that surrounded Tuntun. Xiao Yan, who had already formed a golden elixir, naturally gave Tuntun far more pressure than Wang Lin and Yang Qing, who were at the foundation establishment stage. Facing him, Tuntun had no choice but to abandon the food that was already in its mouth. It released the underworld pearl and faced Xiao Yan's 2 great fires with all its strength. Little Tao Tai used the sun real fire against the sun real fire. After resisting Xiao Yan's sun real fire, it aimed its devouring power at the nether evil flame. Just as it swallowed a little of the nether evil flame, Tuntun suddenly exclaimed, "It's so hot, and the taste is so strong." Its tone wasn't one of fear. It was like a diner who couldn't wait to swallow a hot delicacy. Although it was scalded, it still ate to its heart's content. Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows. "I'll let you eat." As he spoke, he was about to take out the evil flame overlord sword, but Xiao Yan suddenly had another idea. "Maybe I can try." With a thought, Xiao Yan's 2 great true fires suddenly underwent a change. They were no longer clearly separated, not interfering with each other. The tips of the nether evil flame and the sun real fire, which had transformed back into 2 wings behind him, faced each other in the air above Xiao Yan's head. The 2 great fires seemed to be fusing. The fusion between the 2 great fires wasn't smooth. Both were extremely domineering top spirit fires in the world. When they collided, it would be a fierce battle between dragons and tigers. This was the result of Xiao Yan's deliberate control. Now that he wanted to fuse them, it immediately caused a fierce collision. Chaotic and violent waves of magic power constantly radiated in all directions. Even the leaves of the mysterious heaven treasure tree, which covered the sky above Yujing Mountain, trembled slightly, looking askance at this destructive power. A smile appeared on Xiao Yan's face. Within the smile, there was a hint of insanity. His originally black eyes, at this moment, a dazzling gold color appeared in one eye, and a dark bluish-purple color appeared in the other eye. Wang Lin and Yang Qing subconsciously retreated, just wanting to get as far away from Xiao Yan as possible. They swallowed their saliva and moved back a little. Under the horrified gazes of the surrounding people, the fusion between Xiao Yan's 2 great fires gradually became stable. But it was also because of this stability that it revealed a more terrifying aura. A strange light shot out of Xiao Yan's eyes. The 3-year battle with Murong Yenran was coming soon, which put his spirit in a state of excitement and depression. He couldn't wait to do something to vent his emotions. But now, the fusion of the 2 great fires and the release of the terrifying power made him feel comfortable. Seeing this, Lin Feng nodded slightly. It can't be wrong. The Emperor of Fire, this is Xiao Yan's destined path. Although Xiao Yan's experiment hadn't been completely successful, with Lin Feng's current cultivation and vision, he could see at a glance that if this magical power of Xiao Yan's was perfected and could be controlled freely, even an old monster at the early stage of Yuanying stage couldn't resist it. Killing an enemy that was an entire great stage above him could really be called domineering. But Lin Feng certainly wouldn't let Xiao Yan's attack detonate on Yujing Mountain. At this moment, Xiao Yan still couldn't perfectly control the fusion of the 2 fires. If he was the slightest bit careless, the first person to explode would be Xiao Yan himself. "Xiao Yan, your magical power still needs to be perfected. don't use it on Yujing Mountain. Just scare that little girl. Lin Feng transmitted his voice to Xiao Yan. Upon hearing Lin Feng's voice, Xiao Yan's somewhat paranoid mind cleared up and he calmed down again. But on the surface, Xiao Yan still wore a sinister smile as he looked towards Tunten. I wonder if you have any interest in eating this thing. Tunten looked at the two great fires that were gradually fusing above Xiao Yan's head. It licked its little lips as if it had made a great decision and shook its head. Never mind, this thing looks like it will get a stomachache. But after I form a demon nascent and advance to a demon king, I must have a taste. Tunten made a face at Xiao Yan, turned around, and disappeared without a trace. With Xiao Yan here, she could only give up on Wang Lin's Yellow Springs Pearl and Yang Qing's Lunar True Water. Lin Feng looked at the scene in front of him with interest, suddenly receiving Zhu Yi's sound transmission. Master, this Tao Tai is very strong. If us senior and junior brothers attack together, we can surround and kill her, but to capture her alive, the difficulty is really not small. It's not difficult to capture her alive. Try to think of things from a different perspective. Lin Feng said with a smile, Master always tells you guys, in all things in the world, there are big Daos, small Daos, everything has its own reasoning. Think about how hunters hunt wild beasts in the mountains in the secular world. Besides shooting with bows and arrows and fighting with blades and spears, what other methods are there? After a moment of silence, Zhu Yi's voice had a hint of a smile. This disciple understands. Lin Feng was on Jade Capital Mountain, everything that happened on the mountain was within his grasp. Very soon he saw Zhu Yi arrive at the heaven-returning gold pavilion in the pill room, randomly picking one out of the many gourds hanging on the wall and then leaving the pill room. Zhu Yi poured out a pill from the gourd and pointed with his finger. Two streams of magic power, one black and one white, poured into it, and then put the pill back into the gourd. He then casually threw the gourd on an empty space and dodged. After a short while, Tunten appeared. The little guy landed from the air and stared at the gourd on the ground for a long time, muttering to himself, it looks like an obvious trap and bait. Lin Feng and Zhu Yi, who were secretly watching her, laughed at the same time. I'm not afraid of you suspecting it's a trap, but I'm afraid you don't know where the trap is. Given the Taotia's nature, even if it knew it was a trap, it would still eat it. On one hand, it was its gluttonous instinct, and on the other hand, it was confident in its devouring and digestive ability. As expected, Tunten grinned and swallowed the entire gourd containing the pill. Zhu Yi smiled and shook his head. He performed a hand seal and directed his magic power. Tunten immediately felt something was wrong. Inside her body, there was a barrier that was weaved by light and darkness. It looked like an altar. The great light and darkness mandala boundary. With a thought from Zhu Yi, the great light and darkness boundary suddenly showed signs of collapsing. I've been tricked again. Tunten wailed. Zhu Yi's method of dealing with her was exactly the same as that day when Lin Feng first made her swallow the cyclic purple qi, and then manipulated the cyclic purple qi to turn it into a small world in her body to simulate the destruction of heaven and earth. Lin Feng looked at this scene, shaking his head and laughing. They all say that smart people won't fall on the same rock twice, but you, this glutton, just have to remember to eat and not learn. I really don't know whether to say that you're stupid or that you're greedy. While Lin Feng was thinking, Zhu Yi was about to close the net. Suddenly, a figure flashed and captured Tunten, who was unable to move because of the great light and darkness boundary. It was Tiny Tot. But the little guy didn't greet Zhu Yi. He directly grabbed Tunten and disappeared without a trace. Lin Feng curiously looked at Tiny Tot and found that the little guy had no intention of bringing Tunten to report to him. Instead, he took Tunten to a secluded cave residence in the mountains. Chapter 233. Tunten swore that if she was given a chance to choose again, she would never fall for such a simple trap again. Although he said that, the little fellow was still a little lacking in confidence. It's mainly because that guy and his disciples are too cunning and evil. They always deceive a simple Tao-Tai like me. No matter how dissatisfied Tunten was, the great light and darkness mandala boundary that she had swallowed had begun to collapse, simulating the power of nirvana. The power of nirvana created by Zhu Yi in the golden elixir period was far stronger than that of Wang Lin in the foundation establishment stage. Tunten did not dare to move and used all her strength to stop the great light and darkness boundary from operating to prevent it from being destroyed. When Lin Feng's small world of nirvana was destroyed, Tunten could not fight back at all. She could barely suppress it now, but she could not move at all and could only be trampled on. Tunten was cursing inwardly when her vision suddenly darkened. A human youth who looked a few years older than her appeared in front of her. It was Tiny Tot. The little guy chuckled as he looked at Tunten. He grabbed her and quickly left the area. "Hurry up and run, or second senior brother will catch up." The little guy mumbled as he grabbed Tunten and fled to a secluded cave dwelling in Jade Capital Mountain. He first threw Tunten on the ground before carefully walking to the entrance of the cave. He stuck his head out to observe the situation outside. After discovering that Zhu Yi had not caught up, he nodded in satisfaction and pointed with a finger, using his magic power to create a camouflage technique to seal the cave entrance. Tunten was still restrained by the great light and darkness mandala boundary and could not move. She could only curl her lips. "Why did you save me? Who said I was going to save you?" Tiny Tot walked over with a smile, squatted in front of Tunten, and looked her up and down with a strange gaze. Tunten shuddered and shouted, "What do you want to do?" "I only mate with the Blackwater mysterious underworld." "Mate?" Tiny Tot was taken aback for a moment before he reacted. "Pfft, who wants to mate with you? I don't want it even if you beg me." Tunten frowned. "Then why did you bring me here?" The little guy chuckled and began to use that hair-raising gaze to size up Tunten again. Tunten suddenly felt that the little guy's gaze was somewhat familiar. "AI, so familiar. Where have I seen him before?" "Oh, that's right. My clansmen, my father and mother, have the same look in their eyes when they see something delicious." Yes, that's right. I think I have the same look when I see something delicious." Then wait. Tunten's eyes abruptly widened, looking at the little guy in horror as it stammered, You wouldn't want to eat me, right?" The little guy nodded as if it was a matter of course. "Otherwise, why would I capture you?" He rubbed his hands excitedly and said with a smile, "You don't know, but I have a lot of favorite foods, but meat is still my favorite. I've basically eaten all the spirit beasts and demonic beasts in the northern foothills of Kunlun Mountain, and there are many delicious ones. Like the fire spirit sparrow, dragon carp, silver spirit loach, 8 treasures chicken and so on." The little guy licked his lips as if he was counting his family treasures. "My favorite is the 8 treasures chicken, it's very tasty." He turned his head and smiled at Tunten. "However, I really haven't eaten Tao-Tai meat before. Given the fame of the 4 great primordial beasts, their meat should taste pretty good, right?" Tunten's little head shook like a drum. Not tasty at all." The little Tao-Tai was about to cry. It had always been the Tao-Tais that devoured all things. When had anyone ever wanted to eat the Tao-Tais? Tunten instantly felt as if its view of the world had been turned upside down. It wailed in its heart, "Dad, Mom, where are you? Tunten is so pitiful. Not only did I not get anything delicious, I was even eaten by a human." Woo. Xiao Budian did not notice anything and was still circling around Tunten as he clicked his tongue in admiration. "It's said that good feed can produce delicious meat. You Tao-Tai have devoured so many treasures of heaven and earth, so your meat should taste pretty good. Also, you guys have eaten so many good things, the meat should be rich in spirit chi and spirit energy." At the juncture of life and death, Tunten had no choice but to use its lazy little brain. It really did think of a good excuse. "My meat is not tasty at all. My original Taotai body was destroyed and this body was reconstructed. Seeing that the little guy had already started to swallow his saliva, Tunten hurriedly said, my current body was reconstructed after I devoured the remains of the Gung-metal Tiger King. The little guy raised his eyebrows. Gung-metal Tiger race? Tunten nodded repeatedly. Who knew that the little guy would laugh? That's not bad. I haven't eaten Gung-metal Tiger meat before. But it's very unpalatable. Tunten hurriedly said. Think about it, it's all metal essence energy. It's hard to chew it in your mouth. Seeing that the little guy was skeptical, Tunten hurriedly added fuel to the fire. I am a Taotai. AI, we are so gluttonous, yet we would never think of taking the initiative to eat the aged metal demon tiger because it is too disgusting. If that's the case, then it's really a pity. The little guy frowned and looked at Tunten with dissatisfaction. Say, why are you so useless, letting someone destroy your body? Tunten was about to cry. It thought to itself that it also wanted to protect its body, but was it just to let you eat it today? However, seeing that the little guy finally didn't plan to eat it, Tunten let out a long sigh. That's right. The little guy's eyes suddenly lit up. He clenched his right hand into a fist and hammered his left palm, emitting a clear and crisp sound. His gaze once again fell on Tunten, causing the little Taotia's heart to jump. Tunten hurriedly said, it really doesn't taste good, it really doesn't taste good. The little guy waved his hand and said with a smile, I didn't say I was going to eat you. Hearing that it wasn't going to be eaten, Tunten immediately relaxed and carefully asked, then what do you want to do? The little guy blushed and somewhat bashfully said, about that, I have something to tell you, but don't tell anyone else. Hearing this, Tunten became spirited and patted its small chest. Don't worry, I definitely won't tell anyone else. The little guy awkwardly said, actually, my favorite thing to eat is not meat, but, Tunten curiously asked, what is it? I love to drink animal milk. The little guy's toes touched the ground and continuously rubbed it. He seemed very embarrassed and his little face was flushed. Tunten almost laughed out loud. Looking at the little guy who was already 11 or 12 years old, it thought, it seems like this little demon king isn't that scary after all. He's already over 10 years old and still loves to drink milk, ha 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 ha. However, Tunten naturally did not dare to openly laugh at the little guy. It could only hold back its laughter and said, actually, it's nothing. The little guy embarrassedly smiled and continued, if I want to eat meat, I can go hunting in the Kunlun mountain range, but if I want to drink animal milk, it's best to rear a female beast on Yujing mountain. But there are only 2 demonic beasts on Yujing mountain. One is a Fei Lian, and the other is the black dragon that master subdued. But they are both male. The little guy was still talking to himself, but Tunten's expression had already changed when it heard this. At this moment, it could not laugh at all and stared dumbfoundedly at the little guy. Looks like you understand what I mean. The little guy embarrassedly smiled and stared straight at Tunten. Do you have milk? Squeeze some for me. Speaking of which, I haven't drunk Taotia's milk before. Tunten felt a wave of dizziness. Under the little guy's eager and expectant gaze, it let out a loud cry and burst into tears. This time, the little guy did not want to cry in his heart. He really cried. The little guy looked at the crying Tunten and pursed his lips. What are you crying for? If you don't have milk, just tell me. I won't laugh at you. Sigh, I'm the one who should be crying, okay? The little guy sighed. I haven't drunk animal milk in a long time. I'm so pitiful. So pitiful, so pitiful. The corners of Lin Feng's mouth twitched when he saw this scene from the top of Yujing Mountain. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. Does this mean that evil people will be punished by evil people? There really was a higher mountain. The glutton had met the king of gluttons. After bringing the 2 little guys up the mountain, Lin Feng looked at the crying Tunten and said with a smile, do you still dare to run around? The little girl hugged Lin Feng's trousers and said pitifully, "It's too dangerous on the mountain. It's safer to be by your side." Lin Feng smiled and pointed at the little guy. "You're a little idiot." The little guy was puzzled. "Master, what's wrong with me?" Lin Feng smiled and pushed Tunton in front of him. "This little guy's thousands of years of life have been used to eat, the amount of delicacies it's eaten are innumerable, it's completely a walking gourmet guide, why don't you hurry up and coax it? The happiness of your belly will depend on her." The little guy's eyes lit up. "That's right." He patted Tunton's shoulder with a smile. "When we go out in the future, tell me more if there's anything delicious. We'll go eat together." Tunton nodded with a bitter face. It thought to itself, "I just hope you don't eat too happily and end up wanting to eat me again." Lin Feng smiled and sent the two little guys away. With a thought, he summoned Black Dragon Jiayu to his side. Jiayu looked at Tunton's disappearing figure with lingering fear. He respectfully bowed to Lin Feng. "Sect leader, you were looking for me?" Lin Feng smiled. "Are you envious of that little guy for getting so many good things?" Jiayu's heart jumped. He hurriedly said, "No, no." He stole a glance at Lin Feng's expression. Seeing the smile on his face, he boldly said, "I'm a little envious. But sect leader, you must have your own arrangements." Lin Feng nodded noncommittally. He flicked his finger and a ball of light landed in front of Jiayu. Jiayu was overjoyed when he saw it. The ball of light contained 1/3 of the gunmetal Tiger King's demon infant essence. Happiness came so suddenly that Jiayu felt dizzy for a while. Lin Feng looked at the happy Jiayu, the corners of his mouth revealing a smile as warm as the sun. Chapter 234. Ever since Lin Feng killed the gunmetal Tiger King and captured its demon infant essence and corpse, Jiayu had been coveting it. For him, anything he ate could help him break through the peak demon commander realm, successfully form a demon infant, and advance to the demon king realm. Unfortunately, all this time, Lin Feng did not let him get what he wanted. Now that the thing he dreamed of was finally in front of him, Jiayu was so touched that he was about to cry. "It should be because of my performance in the battle with the Taotai. Although I didn't win, the sect master also saw my effort." Although he only had 1/3 of the demon infant essence, Jiayu was still very happy. Cultivating on Yujing Mountain was no worse than cultivating on Baiyun Mountain in Taishu Temple. These days, his strength had improved a lot. After swallowing the demon infant essence, Jiayu's demonic power suddenly surged, and then suddenly shrank. As the demonic power shrank, Jiayu's dragon aura became even more terrifying. In the void above Yujing Mountain, there was a burst of thunder. After swallowing 1/3 of the gunmetal Tiger King's demon infant essence, Jiayu finally broke through his bottleneck and was about to undergo the lightning tribulation and form a demon infant. Lin Feng looked at this scene with interest. He found that there were some differences between the lightning tribulation of the demon race and that of the human race. Whether it was him or Kang Nanhua, when undergoing the lightning tribulation to form their nascent souls, they used their own power to resist the lightning tribulation and kept the enemy outside the country, not daring to let the lightning tribulation touch their bodies. But when the demon race underwent the lightning tribulation, it was the opposite. Instead, they directly spat out their demon core and let the lightning tribulation strike the demon core. If they could withstand it, the demon core would turn into a demon infant and become a demon king. If they could not, they would turn into ashes and everything would become a bubble. Compared to the way the human race underwent the lightning tribulation, it was more primitive, more bloody, and more dangerous. It was full of a barbaric vitality and a spirit of resistance. But it was also closer to the primitive great Tao of heaven and earth, imitating nature. This time, Jiayu did not spend too much effort to undergo the lightning tribulation. With his original cultivation, he could actually trigger the lightning tribulation, but he only had a 50-50 chance of success, so he deliberately suppressed his demonic power to prevent triggering the lightning tribulation. Now that he had obtained a third of the gung-metal Tiger King's demon infant's essence, Jia Yu's accumulated strength was enough for him to successfully cross the lightning tribulation. In the process of being struck by the tribulation lightning, the jet-black beast core kept flashing with a faint golden metallic luster, which made the black beast core even more solid and immovable. When the tribulation lightning finally dissipated, the jet-black demon core still did not suffer much damage. Amidst the flashes of light, after the thunder tribulation, Jia Yu's jet-black demon core let out a crisp sound, like a cracked egg. However, these cracks were not cracks of damage or destruction. Instead, they were filled with the aura of new life. The cracks quickly expanded until they covered the entire Yaodan. Black light shot out from the cracks. The Yaodan completely shattered, and a snake-like young dragon leaped out from the black light. Its body trembled slightly, and when its scales opened and closed, there was no fishy smell of snakes or insects. Instead, there was a sweet fragrance. These fragrant scents quickly condensed into jet-black auspicious clouds, and the dragon might emanating from them made one involuntarily want to bow their heads in submission. Lin Feng smiled and said, "Very good. Now, you are also a demon monarch of the dragon race. It's a pity that your dragon race is special and cannot be called a dragon king. Among the ancient demons, those who formed a demon infant could be called a demon monarch, and those who cultivated an indestructible demon soul could be called a great sage. Only the dragon race was an exception. In the dragon race, those who formed an indestructible dragon soul could be called a dragon king. It seemed like they were one level lower than the other demon races, but in fact, there was a saying in the demon race, one level lower when meeting a dragon. Other than the Tao Tai and Golden Crow, which had the bloodline inheritance of the primordial great demons, the other demon races were a head lower in front of the dragon race. The ruler of the primordial world, even today, was still very famous. Jia Yu's demon infant merged with his body. When he opened his eyes, a majestic and overbearing aura was emitted. The black smelting dragon race, not to mention the primordial heavenly dragon race, even among the demon race, they had the strongest body. After Jia Yu advanced to the demon monarch realm, he just sat there motionlessly, but the terrifying blood and qi in his body kept boiling, as if he was going to tear space apart. If he fought with the gung metal Tiger King again, Jia Yu was confident that he could beat the metal cat until it cried for its parents. But in front of Lin Feng, Jia Yu did not dare to be the slightest bit presumptuous. Before the opening ceremony, during the battle on the Sand Continent Wastelands, even though Jia Yu did not participate in the battle, but under Lin Feng's deliberate arrangements he witnessed the entire process. The scene of Lin Feng instantly killing Yu Qianshan, the cloud elephant ancestor, and the others with a snap of his fingers was deeply engraved in his mind, making him unable to even think of resisting. The old dragon bowed respectfully to Lin Feng. "It's all thanks to Sect Master's help that Jia Yu can be where he is today. If Sect Master has any orders, Jia Yu is willing to follow Sect Master up to the heavens and into the Yellow Springs." Lin Feng smiled, "You don't have to go to the 9 heavens or the Yellow Springs, but I do have something I need your help with." Jia Yu said with emotion, "Sect Master, please tell me, old dragon will not refuse." He looked impassioned on the surface, but he actually had his own plans. This Xian Men Sect Master is actually quite kind. During the battle at the Sand Continent, he did not order me to fight with those Yuanying cultivators. Even if he needs me for something, it should be something that I can definitely do, and not something that would force him to do. And this person is generous. As long as I do my job well, there should be a lot of benefits for me. Jia Yu was calculating in his mind, but Lin Feng did not care. He just asked indifferently, "When you fought with that Tao Tai, did you use a defensive divine power?" Jia Feng nodded and said, "That is the innate divine power of my refining armor race. It is called the Curse Refining Armor Race. It uses demonic energy to form special incantations and inject them into one's own scales, turning the scales into refining black scales, which can resist most spells and curses. He had a proud expression on his face. This is originally a divine power that can only be cultivated after forming a demon infant, but I have been cultivating on this immortal mountain these days and comprehended many laws of the world, so I can use it when I was at the peak of Demon Commander. Now that I have formed a demon infant and advanced to Demon King, using this divine power will increase my defense even more. Jiayu chuckled. Now, if that little Tao Tai uses solar true fire to burn me again, I won't be afraid of her. Solar true fire is one of the 7 great true fires in the world. It is indeed domineering, but she, a demon commander, will need a long time to break through my refining black scales. Before that, I would have already turned her into minced meat. Lin Feng nodded with interest. What if she also advanced to Demon King? Jiayu shrunk his neck and said gloomily, it's hard to say, we'll only know after we fight. Although he was reluctant to admit defeat, he clearly knew that they were at the same cultivation level. Against Tunten, who had 2 powerful weapons, the true sun fire and the devouring heaven and earth ability, and whose physical body was not much weaker than his, the old dragon would still lose. Lin Feng did not expose him and said indifferently, it is indeed a good divine power, and I need your scales to play a role. Jiayu patted his chest. Sect Master, please tell me, wait, Sect Master, you just said you need my scales to play a role? Lin Feng nodded. Yes. Jiayu carefully asked, Sect Master, may I ask, how do you want to use it? Do you want me to fight with someone who is skilled in magic? That's not the case. Lin Feng shook his head, a smile playing on his lips. I made it very clear just now. You don't need to guess, just take it literally. I want your scales. To be more precise, I need you to provide me with some refining black scales. Jiayu broke out in a cold sweat. His worst prediction had come true and he immediately understood that Lin Feng wanted to peel off his dragon scales. Sect Master, don't. Jiayu was tongue-tied. Lin Feng smiled and treated Jiayu with unprecedented kindness. Trust me, it'll be fine. Come, don't be afraid, it won't hurt at all. In the next instant, a tragic wail rang out in the sky above Yujing Mountain. Xiao Budian and Tunten, who were studying the delicacies together, could not help but shrink their necks when they heard the ghostly wails and wolf howls. Who is this? Why is he screaming so frighteningly? Was he thrown into the frying pan alive? Looking at the refinement technique black scale in his hands, Lin Feng carefully analyzed the principles and concepts of the incantations within, comprehending something in his heart, the so-called curse-warding armor. The armor is actually secondary, the main point is this curse. It seems to be a variation of some secret great Tao ability of the dragon race. I have to study it when I have time. The refining black scales I have should be enough, right? Lin Feng nodded in satisfaction. It's okay if it's not enough. I can just collect more when the time comes. Behind him, Jiayu, who was trembling all over as if she had been gang-raped by dozens of men, was about to cry. She was glad that her ordeal was over, but when she heard Lin Feng's last sentence, her eyes rolled back and she fainted. After spending some time with Jiayu, Lin Feng flew to a branch of the Xiantian treasure tree and sat down. He took out the refining black scales, the dragon tendon rope that he had won from the lottery, and the red flame demon eye that Yan Mingyue had given him. The dragon tendon rope and the refining black scales immediately resonated. When the two met, a faint dragon roar could be heard. Even the great auspicious cloud, which was unique to the primordial heavenly dragon, gradually condensed. When the great might auspicious cloud came into contact with the vermilion flame demon eye, the vermilion flame demon eye made a buzzing sound. The flame in the center of the transparent sphere was quietly burning, but at this moment, it jumped, as if a sleeping primordial heavenly dragon suddenly woke up and opened its eyes. The majestic and terrifying power was even stronger than Pang Jie's Dharma form of heaven and earth. It was only slightly weaker than the hexagonal sword. Lin Feng nodded approvingly. Not only is it a Dharma treasure embryo, its quality is also quite outstanding. When it is truly refined into a Dharma treasure, its power will be among the best among Dharma treasures. It's a pity that I haven't attained the essence soul realm, so I can't let you show your true power, said Lin Feng with a smile. However, the rich have their ways of living, and the poor have their ways of living. With that said, Lin Feng pointed at the Xiantian treasure tree. A branch with a few leaves snapped. The branch that was as huge as a mountain kept shrinking as it fell until it was the thickness of an ordinary tree branch. It landed in Lin Feng's hand. Chapter 235. Lin Feng held the mysterious heavenly treasure branch in his right hand and gently stroked the branch with his left hand. A few leaves on the branch fell and floated in the air. Bind! Lin Feng gave a light shout, throwing the mysterious heaven treasure branch that only had a branch left into the air. Then the dragon tendon rope also flew up together, splitting into several strands and wrapping around the branch. The surface of the mysterious heavenly treasure branch flashed with rainbow light and coated the dragon tendon rope with a layer of treasure light. The dragon tendon rope seemed to come to life and intertwined with each other, quickly forming a frame network. Lin Feng pointed at the refinement black scales. Rise! A large number of refinement black scales also flew into the air. Under the control of Lin Feng's faith, they attached themselves to the frame made of dragon tendon rope. The dragon tendon rope, which flashed with the same rainbow light as the mysterious heavenly treasure branch, penetrated the refinement black scales one by one after they touched the refinement black scales. Soon, with the mysterious heavenly treasure branch as the backbone, the refinement black scales and the dragon tendon rope weaved together to form a rainbow-colored dragon scale armor. As the treasure light flashed, the armor became one. A majestic dragon might spread out, causing people's hearts to tremble. However, there was a hole in the chest area of the armor. Lin Feng's expression was calm. He raised the vermilion flame demon eye and shouted, "Combine." Under the control of his magic power, the vermilion flame demon eye also flew into the air and fitted into the empty space in the chest area of the armor. After the vermilion flame demon eye and the armor became one, it immediately let out a deafening dragon roar, as if it could pass through the endless void. The leaves on the branches of the mysterious heavenly treasure tree near this area started to shake. Everyone else on Jade Capital Mountain was alarmed. They turned to look at the sky and saw that under the shade of the mysterious heavenly treasure tree, there was a faint red cloud that was constantly moving, emitting a terrifying power that made people's hearts palpitate. Kang Nanhua and Miao Shihao had already formed Yuanying. At this moment, facing the red cloud, they also felt their hearts palpitate. Sect Master, this is refining a magic treasure. Kang Nanhua quickly reacted. Miao Shihao also came out of his cave abode and walked to the mysterious heavenly treasure tree, standing side by side with Kang Nanhua. To be able to instinctively make us feel fear, it is indeed a magic treasure. Jia Yu also stared blankly at the red cloud. That is the great might auspicious cloud of the dragon clan. And it's from the fire dragon race. Oh right, Fairy Yen gifted a vermilion flame demon eye to Sect Master. Sect Master wants to refine it into a magic treasure. Sect Master wants my scales to be used to refine magic treasure. Jia Yu felt a little better. Magic treasure, it's something incredible. It's worth it for me to have some scales peeled off. Sect Master's success in refining the treasure can be considered as my honor. Dragon on Spirit Heaven Sword. Yen Clan Sword on Heavenly Spirit Dragon was Yuanying Treasure, Yen Spirit Yen Feng Sect Treasure, Dragon Sect Spirit Treasure was, on. Dragon on Heaven Spirit Dragon Dao Spirit. That was a Yuanying Spirit Treasure. When it encountered a primordial spirit treasure, it would naturally be suppressed. Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows and turned to look at Zhu Yi. Although I don't know if it will be this magic treasure, according to Master's usual practice, he will probably reward a magic treasure to the person who advanced to Yuanying stage first. The others will probably have to wait a little longer to get the good stuff. Second junior brother, are you interested in competing to see who gets this magic treasure in the end? Zhu Yi smiled faintly. It won't always be little junior brother who wins first. On one hand, he was expressing his confidence. On the other hand, he was also pushing Xiao Yan. Previously, you weren't the first to form your gold core and get a Yuanying spirit treasure. Why are you so enthusiastic? How could Xiao Yan not understand what he meant? He laughed loudly. Then let's wait and see. Lin Feng had already expected such a big commotion, but he didn't care. He looked at the armor in front of him. In the middle of the armor's chest, the vermilion flame demonic eye was like a huge dragon's eye, and it was also staring at him. Lin Feng smiled. With a point of his finger, the leaves that fell from the mysterious heavenly treasure tree earlier flew up and landed on the vermilion flame demonic eye, covering it up. When these leaves combined with the armor, their shape changed. They seemed to have also become pieces of armor, full of a metallic texture. The mysterious heavenly treasure tree's colorful light merged with the armor's own light, and the vermilion flame demonic eye didn't reject it. Although the mysterious heavenly treasure tree's appearance covered the vermilion flame demonic eye, it didn't affect the display of its power. At this moment, the whole armor was completely refined. Endless spiritual power and demonic aura fused together, revealing an aura of life. Lin Feng could clearly sense that there was a new life consciousness about to be born. Now's not the time. Lin Feng shook his head regretfully. He raised his finger and pointed at the center of the armor's chest, where the vermilion flame demonic eye was. The life aura wasn't erased by Lin Feng, but the intelligent consciousness was forced back into the vermilion flame demonic eye by Lin Feng. With a thought, the battle god clone came to Lin Feng's side. With a bang, the armor in front of him was put on the battle god clone. The size of the armor was automatically adjusted to fit the battle god clone's figure. The width, the length, the fat, and the thin were all just right. When the armor and the battle god clone were completely combined, it suddenly let out a mighty dragon roar. Bright red flames lit up and flickered with colorful light, covering the battle god clone's body. The flames also covered the battle god clone's head, but it didn't hurt it at all. Instead, it gradually solidified and turned into a helmet, covering the battle god clone's face. The helmet looked like a dragon's head. After putting on the helmet, the battle god clone turned into a giant with a dragon head and a human body. The leaves on the armor opened and closed, just like the dragon's scales shaking. The fiery pythons and dragons roared furiously as the blazing flames swirled around the god of war's clone. The silhouette of a primordial heavenly dragon appeared in the void behind him. With a shake of its scales, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Primordial spirit artifact, flame dragon heavenly armor. Feeling the terrifying energy wave in front of him, Lin Feng wore a satisfied smile. Strictly speaking, the armor in front of him wasn't a real artifact. The vermilion flame demonic eye was not refined. It was an artifact that had the power of an artifact combined with a lot of artifacts. Although it was just a combination and not refined, both the power and the intent within it had reached the level of an artifact. It could even give birth to an artifact spirit. However, if that was the case, the flame dragon heavenly armor that had its own consciousness might not necessarily submit to Lin Feng. Or rather, even if it did submit to him, it would have other thoughts. It would be great if it didn't drag him down at the crucial moment. Therefore, Lin Feng decisively suppressed the birth of the artifact spirit. Instead, he merged the armor with the battle god clone. From a certain perspective, the battle god clone had become a part of the artifact spirit. In other words, it was a part of the artifact spirit. Lin Feng turned the consciousness of the battle god clone into the artifact spirit and merged it with the armor. In other words, a part of Lin Feng's consciousness was placed on the flame dragon heavenly armor. That way, Lin Feng would have absolute control over the combined artifact. The downside was that if the artifact spirit was damaged, Lin Feng's main body would be affected too. The physical strength of the clone of the war god is basically already standing at the peak of what a nascent soul stage cultivator can achieve. Even though its spells are slightly weaker, but it is not an exaggeration to say that its overall combat strength is even stronger than the current Lin Feng. Now that it had merged with the Flame Dragon heavenly armor, its strength had increased to the next level. It was almost equivalent to a primordial soul realm cultivator, and one with extremely powerful Dharma spells. Lin Feng said in his heart, right now these good materials, just by putting them together they already have such powerful strength. After I truly advance to the primordial spirit realm and completely refine and fuse them into one, becoming a true magic item, then the power can really be said to be world-shaking. With a thought, the flame dragon heavenly armor turned into a ball of flame and disappeared into Lin Feng's forehead. Kang Nanhua and Miao Shihao welcomed Lin Feng as he landed from the mystic sky treasure tree. Kang Nanhua cupped her fists and said with a smile, "Congratulations, sect leader, for successfully refining the artifact spirit." Miao Shihao also covered her mouth and giggled. With sect leaders' habits, I wonder which kid will get the artifact spirit in the end? It doesn't have to be this one. Lin Feng faintly smiled, bragging without any preparation at all, "The treasures that I bestow upon my disciples all have to fit their actual needs. However, I don't plan to change my habits. I'll give an artifact to whoever advances to the nascent soul realm first." Miao Shihao said with a smile, "I wonder who will be the lucky one." "Brother Shihao, I'm more optimistic about Xiao Yan. TSK, he's powerful and domineering, brave and diligent. He's a man that I like." Lin Feng grinned. He thought to himself, if Xiao Yan heard you say that, he would be so scared that his cultivation level would drop back to the foundation building realm. He turned to look at Kang Nanhua and asked with a smile, "What about Nanhua?" Kang Nanhua smiled. "Sect leader, are you going to open a bet? Then I'll join in as well. I bet that your second disciple, Zhu Yi, will be the first to advance to the nascent soul realm." "Oh. What's the reason?" Lin Feng's eyes flickered. Tianhao is about to reach adulthood, and his temperament has gradually stabilized. His strength will enter a period of rapid growth, so he should be the most hopeful. Kang Nanhua explained, but his golden elixir is a little special. The 9 orifices of the Xiantian realm are like 9 heavenly grotto heavens that can devour the heavens and earth. But when he advances to the late phase of the golden elixir, he will have to complete the entire golden elixir. This process is much more difficult than others. If he doesn't have any special opportunities, he will have to spend a lot of time on this. "That's true." Miao Shihao nodded his head. Kang Nanhua continued to say, "Xiao Yan controls 2 great true fires. Right now, among your sect's disciples, his combat ability is one of the best. Before, when he wanted to merge the 2 great true fires, that terrifying power made even me and fellow Miao's heart palpitate. But his character is too firm, and it's easy for him to break. If he continues like this, I'm afraid that he will suffer some losses. Although it won't affect his vitality, it will delay his cultivation." In the end, Kang Nanhua concluded, "As for your second disciple, Zhu Yi, he might seem mediocre, but he's actually calm and composed. Every step he takes is well planned, and every step he takes is steady. So he's the least prone to accidents, so I'm optimistic about him." Lin Feng faintly smiled. Kang Nanhua's conclusion also inevitably had traces of his personality in it. As for Miao Shihao, it was purely a hobby. "What about the sect leader? Who do you think will win?" Miao Shihao asked with a smile. Chapter 236. Sect Master, who do you think will win? Upon hearing Miao Shihao's question, Lin Feng smiled. "I won't hide it from you. It's not easy to answer this question now. I'm also looking forward to them giving me a surprise." Kang Nanhua and Miao Shihao looked at each other. Miao Shihao covered her mouth and giggled. "Sect Master doesn't know either." Because there's a huge variable, Lin Feng said indifferently. This variable is little Lin. Kang Nanhua and Miao Shihao both had thoughtful looks on their faces. Although they didn't have a talent detector like Lin Feng and could accurately know the 4 potential values of the disciples, given their current cultivation level and the fact that they had been in contact with Xiao Yan and the others for a period of time, they could naturally see that Wang Lin was different from the others. Lin Feng continued to say, the suspense lies in when Linny can form his core. If little Lin can successfully form his core before the 3 of them advance to the advanced golden elixir stage, then I'm most optimistic that little Lin will be the first to form his nascent soul. Lin Feng stretched out his hand and drew a circle of light in the air. If Xiaoyi advances to late stage or his core stage before Linny forms his core, then my point of view is the same as Nanhua's. Xiaoyi will most likely be the first to form his core. The image in the circle floated, revealing the scene in the Medicine Valley. There were 2 figures inside. They were Wang Lin and Yang Qing. Yang Qing picked up a spirit herb that Tunten had trampled and sighed, his face full of frustration. In front of Tunten, he had almost no power to fight back. If he didn't release all the great Yin true water in his body, he wouldn't even be able to protect himself. However, releasing all the great Yin true water wasn't something he could control right now. If the true water went berserk, the outcome would be unpredictable. Wang Lin glanced at Yang Qing and said faintly, once you realize your own shortcomings, you have to cultivate even more diligently. It's not good to feel sorry for yourself, and it's also not good to rely on others. Yang Qing mumbled, I feel that no matter how hard I work, I can't catch up with eldest senior brother and second senior brother. Little junior brother, sigh, when he called me senior brother, I was so embarrassed that I wanted to find a hole to hide in. Wang Lin got on his Fei Lian beast and flew away. His voice echoed in the air, if you keep thinking like this, you will never be able to catch up to him. Yang Qing stared blankly at the medicinal field in front of her, and after a long time, she forcefully slapped her face. Cheer up, the enemy that destroyed Cloudwater Cave is probably even more ferocious than Tao Tai. How can I avenge everyone in my current state? Master accepted me as a disciple. If I can't recover after this, won't I let him down? No, I can't embarrass him. Lin Feng and the other 2 looked at the image in the light circle. Miao Shihao chuckled. Although his temperament is a little weak, he still knows what's good for him. It's just that in the future, Kang Nanhua frowned slightly and turned to look at Lin Feng. Sect Master, Yang Qing's temperament is actually somewhat similar to Hong Yan's. But as fellow Miao said, he is introverted and gentle. I'm afraid it won't be good for him in the long run. Kang Nanhua's words didn't seem to make sense at first. She put the gentle and humble Yang Qing and the resolute and heroic Yu Hong Yan into the same category. But Lin Feng understood his meaning at the first moment, nodding his head in deep thought. When Kang Nanhua said that Yang Qing and Yu Hong Yan were similar, he wasn't referring to the way they handled things, but the fact that they both lacked initiative. Their efforts, their struggles, their efforts, in the end, were all for others. Yang Qing pulled himself together and walked out of the blow of the battle with Tao Tai. In the end, he was different from Wang Lin. Wang Lin constantly strived to become stronger and took the initiative to make himself stronger. Yang Qing, on the other hand, did not want to disappoint Lin Feng. To be precise, as a disciple of Lin Feng, he did not want outsiders to say that he had lost face for Lin Feng in the future. He did not want outsiders to accuse Lin Feng of not having a good eye for accepting disciples. He wanted to become stronger in order to avenge the people who had destroyed his sect's water cloud cave. He wanted to repay Lin Feng's kindness of saving him. But Yang Qing's subjective idea of making himself stronger was not strong. Yu Hongyan seemed to be courageous and fearless, but in fact, in terms of cultivation philosophy, she was very similar to Yang Qing. Yu Hongyan was eager to become stronger. Previously, because of the national enmity between Snowgale Country and the Great Zhou dynasty, she inherited the will of her deceased brother Yu Hongfeng. It was Yu Hongfeng's faith that had been leading her forward, and after the Gale Association was destroyed by Zhang Lai, Yu Hongyan's motivation to move forward became to find Zhang Lai for revenge. Lin Feng and Kang Nanhua could be 100% sure that if the great Zhou dynasty and Zhang Lai disappeared overnight, then Yu Hongyan would be at a loss and would not know what to do. However, Yu Hongyan's character was unyielding and strong-willed. Even if she lost her goal, she would continue to move forward according to inertia. As for Yang Qing, after losing the driving force brought by the outside world, he was afraid that he would completely lose the motivation to move forward. He himself lacked the desire to move forward. Perhaps returning to the countryside and being a leisurely wanderer was his final destination. Lin Feng lightly said, Yang Qing's potential is actually far from bottoming out. This was the truth, but it was not convenient for him to tell Kang Nanhua and Miao Shihao in detail. From the first day he accepted Yang Qing as his disciple, Lin Feng was actually a bit curious. How did Yang Qing's 9-point root bone come about? Xiao Budian's 10-point root bone was because he was born to build a foundation and was born with a supreme spirit platform. Xiao Yan's preparatory empress, Xiao Zhen, had a root bone of 9-point, but with a glance, one could tell that she had an extraordinary background. With such a high root bone, it was very likely that her bloodline inheritance gave her some kind of bonus. Yang Qing's root bone was the same as Xiao Zhen's 9-point. Among the people that Lin Feng had probed, they were the two with the highest root bone under Xiao Budian. How could he have such a high root bone? After he became Lin Feng's disciple, Lin Feng also secretly probed, but he did not find anything, which made Lin Feng even more curious. Kang Nanhua and Miao Shihao misunderstood Lin Feng's meaning. Miao Shihao smiled and said, if Yang Qing's temperament and willpower could be stronger, his future should be limitless. Lin Feng's expression did not change, but he was smiling bitterly in his heart. The system gave Yang Qing's will, this value was the value of his talent potential, not the current attribute value. In other words, the system was certain that Yang Qing's will in this life was only 5 points. Unless, there was a huge external factor interfering. Just like that young master Red Leaf, Yi Piaoxue, who mindlessly opened a harem and forcefully squandered his good fortune. If he was allowed to develop normally, the data given by the system would actually be his final height. If he wanted Yang Qing's will to improve, he would have to undergo a huge and painful change in his temperament. Putting aside the fact that Lin Feng had always been skeptical about the authenticity of events that could cause a person's temperament to change overnight, if such a thing really happened, with Yang Qing's weak willpower, he was afraid that he would be completely defeated and have a mental breakdown. The destruction of the Cloudwater Cave was originally an opportunity, but the continuous intervention of the Wind God sect and Lin Feng made this opportunity slip away. If not for the intervention of the Wind God sect and Lin Feng, Yang Qing's temperament might have changed greatly, and he might have embarked on the path of a powerhouse to take revenge alone, but he might also not be able to withstand such a huge blow, and have a mental breakdown, his willpower completely depressed. The pursuit of the Wind God sect and the appearance of Lin Feng to save him gave Yang Qing another choice at the fork of the road of fate. Lin Feng would sometimes think, if not for him and the Wind God sect, which path would Yang Qing take? Although I'm looking forward to you becoming stronger, I'm afraid that you'll have to pay a huge price, so much so that you won't be able to bear it. Lin Feng sighed in his heart, after all, you don't look like Xiao Yan and the others who have the protagonist's halo to protect you. When a real crisis comes, it's hard to predict whether you'll live or die. Lin Feng's thoughts moved, and the image in the halo changed, turning back into Wang Lin's appearance. He saw Wang Lin sitting on the back of the Fei Lian beast, and even before he returned to his cave abode, he had already started to meditate and cultivate, not willing to relax for even a second. Kang Nanhua and Miao Shihao looked at each other and nodded at the same time. Little Lin's comprehension is shocking. Once he successfully forms his gold core, the reliance on his bone frame for cultivation will be greatly reduced, and comprehension will be more important. With his willpower, he will definitely improve by leaps and bounds. Lin Feng smiled, and with a wave of his hand, the halo dissipated. He descended from the sky and arrived in front of Xiao Yan and the others. At this moment, Xiao Yan was looking at Tunten with a sneer on his face. I almost forgot. If I'm not wrong, the Tao Tai that squatted in the ring and sucked all my magic power dry was you, right? Tunten curled its lips. You're still talking about it? That little bit of magic power, and the quality is very poor, it's not even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. Xiao Yan was so angry that he laughed instead. Ha, you're quite picky with your mouth. Now, I can let you eat all you want in one go, but I don't know if you have the guts to do so. Tunten immediately wanted to retort, but suddenly recalled the terrifying power contained in the fusion of Xiao Yan's two great true fires. Its little head shrank slightly, and it mumbled, I'll owe you for now, I'll eat you when I form my demon nascent soul. Eldest senior brother, calm down, calm down. Xiao Budian hurriedly blocked Xiao Yan, whose body was already emitting a cold killing intent. I'm still waiting for her to bring me to find delicious food. Xiao Budian paused for a moment, and then continued, moreover, it's useless to kill her, her meat doesn't taste good. Tunten, who was originally quite grateful to Xiao Budian, immediately twitched its mouth when it heard this, and turned its head away. This pair of senior and junior brothers are not good birds. Lin Feng also shook his head and laughed. He came behind Tunten, reached out his hand to grab its little head, and directly pressed it at a 90-degree angle to bow to Xiao Yan. I'll give you a chance to say it again. What should you say now? Good, Tao Tai doesn't fight when the odds are against him. Tunten, who was grabbed by Lin Feng, could not resist at all, and it curled its lips. I'm sorry, it was my fault before, I apologize to you, please forgive me. Lin Feng smiled, what else? Tunten rolled its eyes, if there's anything I can do in the future, feel free to tell me, I will make up for the mistakes I made in the past. Xiao Yan recalled that Lin Feng had said that Tunten was his spiritual pet, and seeing Tunten admit defeat and apologize, his anger immediately eased a lot, and he looked at Tunten and snorted, forget it, I'll thank the heavens if you don't come and make trouble for me again. Tunten made a face at him. Lin Feng patted its head, then turned to look at Xiao Yan, and suddenly asked, are you ready? The others did not understand what Lin Feng was talking about, but Xiao Yan immediately understood. The smile on his face disappeared, and he solemnly bowed to Lin Feng, reporting to Master, disciple is ready. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.